Welcome, everybody, to Radio Free Nintendo. This is episode 874. I am your host, John Lindemann. James Jones is out this week, gallivanting wherever he gallivants as he is wont to do. With me this week, as always, Greg Leahy.
Ahoy, ahoy, everyone.
Guillaume Bayette.
Hello.
And special guest, friend of the show, Cern McNulty.
It's been a couple of years, I think.
It has been a while, and in fact, you know, it's funny because you to get on the show, you actually messaged me via Discord, and I never check Discord ever. So I actually, when I saw the little badge that I had a message, I thought it was from somebody else in one of the clans I'm in or something, so I just checked for the heck of it. And I was like, oh, wow, well, there you go. What a delight. What a delight. So, yeah, plenty to talk about this week. As always, all kinds of interesting things happening. So we'll get to new business in a little while. But the first thing we have to talk about is the Switch 2 announcement of the announcement. So that went out this week. As we all thought, of course, Nintendo has on May the 5th, they had their shareholder shindig, where they usually announce this sort of stuff, or at least talk about it. So Nintendo has finally admitted that it's making the Switch 2. And so on Twitter, or X, Furukawa put out the following announcement. This is Furukawa, president of Nintendo. We will make an announcement about the successor to Nintendo Switch within the fiscal year. It will have been over 9 years since we announced the existence of Nintendo Switch back in March 2015. We will be holding a Nintendo Direct. Hold on while I switch over to Twitter. We'll be holding a Nintendo Direct to announce this, effectively, is what he said. So, thoughts on this one?
Well, it was also combined with the fact we will be having a Nintendo Direct in June, which is no surprise, obviously, because you know that's pretty much what they've done that many years. But that will not have any such announcement in it. It's all expectations management of just like, okay, yes, we're acknowledging that the time to transition to the Switch's successor is drawing near. We're putting a timeline on, when the announcement for that can happen, by the end of March next year. But in the meantime, yes, there's going to be a Nintendo Direct soon, but no, don't expect anything in that pertinent to the successor topic. So just we talk about this a lot with Nintendo Directs and Nintendo stuff in general, like they're always trying to rein expectations in a bit, even as a lot of their, existence is trying to hype things up, they also have to kind of rein things in a bit, and that's what this is, as well as, of course, providing, this time with the shareholder meeting, because obviously that's, where they're going to provide information to their shareholders to give them guidance on what to expect in the future, as is their responsibility. So you're just kind of juggling a few things at once here.
Yeah, and as I understand, their expectations for this fiscal year do not include the launch of the Switch 2?
No, because when the Switch came out at the end of fiscal year 2017, they had not forecasted, or they had not shared a hardware forecast until the device got announced to the customers.
Okay.
So, who knows?
You can't take that to say that the announcement will come and it'll be for launch in the following fiscal year. It is still possible, that it could be that, okay, the announcement comes whenever it is in the next so many months, and then, the launch of the device that is announced would still be within this fiscal year. It certainly doesn't preclude that, but we've got a big range of possibilities here, because obviously we've got almost, this fiscal year's only just begun, so we've got almost an entire year in which that announcement could come, and therefore a lot of different possibilities of could you still see it, in time for the holidays? Could you still see it in time for the end of the fiscal year, which is when Switch came out, back in 17? That's all still in play, but equally, it could be going into the second half at 25 by the time the successor device could come out. So again, it's a notable thing because this is the first, for all the talk of behind the scenes rumours and tea leaf readings and all this about, has it been delayed or all that? They said nothing until now. This is them actually saying something.
Yes.
Yeah, so all this is really saying is that they will have a Switch 2 announcement of some sort. Actually, I don't even think they specify. They just say a Switch 2 announcement by March 31st, 2025.
Yep. And that they have enough on the slate for Nintendo Switch games coming later this year to have a summer direct.
Yep. So.
Reassuring.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm just looking at Polygon here, and so I haven't really been too closely following the rumor mill.
Oh God!
I mean, I don't think we're at the point. We haven't reached the point where people are doing 3D mock-ups.
No, John, it's more unhinged.
Do
you want to know what
because
today's
it's 2024. Of course.
So, a group of people on family boards have, for the last 6 months, been stalking public disclosures of U.S. customs forms going from NVIDIA to Nintendo of America, and today they hit on a March disclosure that has the entire dev spec, so now they know what the system is.
Okay.
So
what's the skinny on that?
It's a little more powerful than a Steam Deck, a little less powerful than a Series S.
Okay.
It doesn't have an SSD.
Okay.
It has 256 gigs of flash storage, 12 gigs of RAM. It's built for DLSS. It still has Joy-Con.
All right. Yeah,
and by
so
that,
it's pretty much
it's just detachable controllers. And
with magnets, right? With magnets?
That's not in the customs declaration. It's just
magnets unconfirmed at this time, everybody. Calm down. Sit down, everybody.
Individual controllers that have their own serial numbers, and there's a left and a right designated one. Again, they don't get to see what's in the package, but they get the list of serial numbers of products included, and some of those are publicly available off-the-shelf NVIDIA chips that you can go just reverse look up.
Okay, but more importantly, maybe the IR sensor, is that off the shelf? Do we know?
Not a clue.
Yeah, we want to know if we can make our own Switch 2 right now.
But
that's what we want to know.
Hey, that's the gist, is people went to stalkerish behavior to try and find out some specs a couple months early.
Yeah. Doesn't surprise me.
If you used to follow in the sports world where people are tracking the owner's plane to see, like, it's been to this state, so they could have been interviewing this guy and all that. It certainly doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to see where this goes. When do we actually think this thing will be announced? I would expect probably around the end of the fiscal year, so probably March-ish.
Yeah, I feel like they wouldn't have given themselves a whole year if they weren't planning to use the whole year, but that's just me.
As I recall, I think the Switch was announced in September. Is that right? So they talked about it in March
2015.
I mean, that's when NX was discussed.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's stages to it in that case. But also, as we've said many times, there's an important distinction in the completely different sort of state of affairs there, where they were very much up against it with the way things were going, with the failure of the Wii U and the kind of... and then getting forced to kind of do mobile stuff and all that. They was basically like they had to share things much sooner than they ordinarily would, and try and again, the dual kind of roles of, on the one hand, trying to kind of reassure investors we have a plan to get out of this, while also messaging the public about this thing without being able to give too much away. Now, you would think the timeline between we acknowledge this thing exists and then it comes out should be considerably compressed from what it was back in, 15 to 17, because they're not in those dire straits anymore.
No. I think that no matter what, by holiday 2025, like real holiday 2025, you're playing this thing.
I would agree. Yeah.
But so the Nintendo Switch gets formally unveiled October 20th, 2016, which is almost exactly 2 weeks after Color Splash came out. Paper Mario Color Splash is Nintendo's final Wii U exclusive game. I think that whatever this... Honestly, I think the read is, for my guess, they're going to announce it 1 to 2 weeks after whatever this year's big holiday game is.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, right now there's absolutely no reason for them to announce this before the end of the year and take focus off of their end-of-year lineup, which we will find out about very soon.
Yeah, well, that's another difference, isn't it? Again, with the kind of dynamics that we just talked about, is that, I mean, there really wasn't very much to cannibalise back then.
That, and if this next system is backward compatible, then they worry less about cannibalizing it, I would assume.
Indeed,
because when they announced the Nintendo Switch, if you were in the middle of playing Paper Mario Color Splash, it's like, well, hurry it up. Here's the release date for the system that you won't be playing that game on.
Yeah, so interesting times indeed. I look forward to having to use the alarm. We haven't used it yet. I don't think we've used
There's been the
alarm.
odd, okay, but there we have to sort of kind of say, well, all we've had is an announcement of an announcement. We don't know what it is yet.
We also only know what NVIDIA has mailed Nintendo.
Yes, exactly. We might have some things that point in some directions from some online sleuths, but officially we don't know anything. Just like we didn't know it was delayed or any of that stuff. So it's just the usual caveats.
Yeah, I guess I need to make a new alarm. We'll see. We'll see what I can whip up.
Don't sound too enthused, Guillaume. Yeah.
We do not currently know what the
Successor to the Switch.
is. We do not currently know what the
Successor to the Switch.
is.
Well, I feel like this is just kind of a little bit of a different scenario, because I feel like the fact that we kind of know what this thing is probably going to look like, and there's not a lot of mystery, really takes the steam out of these 3D mock-ups, which almost certainly now would be generated by AI, which is a new wrinkle. By
Microsoft Copilot?
Maybe Gemini? Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the I don't even know what you would call those people. They're not fan fiction writers. I feel like I'm disparaging fan fiction writers by even calling these people. But
are we sure that like the Switch isn't already using AI, because the control sticks already approximate what I want them to do? So
they just assume what a normal game player would want to do next.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure a lot of the games that James looks at on the eShop, they have to be generated with AI.
Oh yeah,
or at least their listings are.
There are some platforms out there that require you to disclose if you used AI in your game development. There are some.
Yeah.
And then there's whatever the fuck the eShop is.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. But that was not the only announcement this week. The other was for the Nintendo World Championship game.
Oh, for old people.
For old people, yeah. So this is the Nintendo World Championships NES edition for Nintendo Switch. So this is coming out in 2 flavors. This has a digital version for $29.99, and then it has a physical version for $59.99. And the physical version has a replica of the gold cartridge, which of course does not work. They warn you that they warn that up front that it does not work. It is just a replica. And I think it has some little cards with it.
Yep, little art cards for each of the 13 NES games.
Yep. So yeah, thoughts on this one? This is very interesting. I'm not too sure. This But this strikes me. We were talking about what kind of games we're going to see for the second half of the year, and this very much strikes me as one of those kind of off the wall projects that they just kind of pull out of nowhere.
Well,
relatively cheap to make.
Oh, sure, yeah. I wonder about this. Is entirely my speculation, so as you can imagine, they're not worth terribly much. But I do wonder whether this is something that may have, at one point at least, been considered for a kind of Nintendo Switch Online, kind of release, not an individual purchase.
Sure seems like it.
In the vein of an F-Zero 99, Tetris 99, Mario 35, and so on. That because obviously these are all games that are available on the NES part of NSO, kind of the NES app or Famicom app in Japan. So it kind of makes sense in that. So there's a kind of complement to that, and just this whole kind of focus on, kind of online competition. Because the concept, seems quite familiar to those of us who remember NES Remix, from those days when they were kind of vamping a little bit for
without
trying
the
to
remix.
Yes, they're true. But, kind of taking those old games and chopping them up into sort of bits, little challenges.
Yeah, Amiibo tapped Nintendo's greatest bits.
Also that, yes, which, was not something you paid for, was it? Other than just you had to have an Amiibo that worked or whatever? I forget.
Yeah,
exactly.
that was a free download, and that was really just... honestly, I think, Greg, when we were ranking, I told you my theory. I'm just pretty convinced that Amiibo Tap was just Nintendo trying to troll people by saying, "Oh, you have one Amiibo? Well, fuck you, it's Ice Climber." Now you have Ice Climber. Oh, you bought a second one, Mock Rider.
But it does seem like it's the kind of thing that would have fit pretty well with the other kind of offerings that they've done for, NSO people so far. But then it's like, well, the second half of this year is looking pretty light as we transition all our developers away from, the current hardware to the next hardware. So maybe we'll just, make this a standalone purchase and a special edition with a box and some art cards, and that'll be July taken care of. They tend to have something per month. Kind of, I guess Endless Ocean was just at the beginning of May, but it was kind of like the April game. And then, of course, you're going to have Thousand Year Door for, later this month, and then Luigi's Mansion 2 HD for June. So it's kind of like, okay, that was something maybe that was conceived maybe at one point with one purpose in mind that has been repurposed to kind of fill out this second half of the year. And I guess, because it's relatively close and it's not exactly earth-shattering in nature, it kind of makes sense to kind of wait, not to wait for that June Direct in this case and just kind of announce it by itself. It seems perfectly kind of... sensible, especially as I think the ESRB spoiled this as well.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Last week, and when the ESRB spoils something, that typically means it was meant to have been announced by now.
Sure, yeah.
Because with all age rating agencies, you tell them the date that you want it to go live. And Nintendo told them the date, and then they must have changed their mind. Have y'all seen what this game looks like the UI in the bottom left corner of gameplay?
I've seen some. There's a video on the... There's a video on the Japanese Nintendo YouTube account where they've got they've been doing these for a while, I guess, since the Famicom anniversary last year, where they've got this sort of set that's like meant to be a game store in the 80s with all the Famicom boxes behind them and stuff. So they've been doing these sorts of videos for quite a while, and so now with this announcement, they've got the hosts kind of playing some of these challenges and stuff. So that's like the most I've seen of it in action, and you kind of get like letter grades per challenge, and it's like really, really, really like obviously this is them like just demoing like the most basic thing in the game essentially. So it's like literally 1-1 from Super Mario Brothers. How quickly can you get the first super mushroom? Like that, you know, and it takes, you know, what it should take a matter of about, you know, 6 seconds or something like that. That's what they're kind of demoing.
Yeah, they took the kind of shot clock adjacent HUD that Twitch streamers use for tracking speed runs and just slapped it into this game without editing it at all. And I kind of appreciate how brazen that is. Just saying, we take your transformative work and it's ours now.
Hey. It's worked for other companies, right?
Yeah. Also, for me, kind of fascinating that you can't... In NES Remix, I wasn't bothered that it didn't include, like, the full version of Super Mario Brothers or Zelda or whatever, because I'm not sitting here bemoaning the fact that I need another place to play these games.
Sure.
But here, with a speedrun infrastructure built around it, it does feel very weird that there's no, like, now put it all together.
Yeah, no, I kind of see that. It's, again, I expect now that it is, you know, kind of a separate purchase. If, again, my speculation that it ever wasn't that, so we don't know that that's the case or whatever, but, you know, the fact that it is a separate purchase makes it feel a little bit more kind of like, well, you know, shouldn't you be able to just have bought the game and do whatever you want with it if that, you know, as part of this as well, rather than, you know, if it had been an NSO thing, well, it's like, well, yeah, you have access to those games in full on the NSO app, so this can be its own thing more so. Yeah, it does. That seems a little bit awkward to me.
So who's going to pick this up? Who's going to pick up the NES edition, the deluxe set?
Oh, absolutely not the deluxe set. This is a digital game. Like,
yeah, it is a digital game. It's funny because it's in stock right now at Best Buy, and I'm like, I added it to my cart, and I'm like, what am I going to do with this?
No, I mean,
what am I going to do with this?
I have to say, this came up a little bit. I think with the episode that was out recently about, you know, there was an email about special editions and all that. You know, and I think James was talking about, you know, he hadn't. He would be tempted to have had some of the Xenoblade ones, you know, but he didn't have
for
them.
sure.
And like, it's sort of similar for me in terms of like, yeah, actually like a fantasy box for a Xenoblade game with the artwork and all that is more appealing. But again, that in that case, it's because it's such a long form game. I want that digitally because I don't want it to be thinking like, yeah, well, you know, I'm always going to have that game card in there for like months or something. Is not really something I like. So, but in this case, it's like,
you want to see more of the world, though, right? Like, you know, like the art book and stuff like that. That's cool because you want to see more of the world.
Yeah. When you're like kind of invested in that, and you know you get a lot out of it, like it would make some sort of sense. But the flip side of it is I want it digitally for convenience, and in this case, it's the complete opposite end of the spectrum, but it's the same outcome. This is such a short form experience that, you know, I wouldn't want to have to rely on a physical game card, you know, to just pop it in and like, you know, run a few challenges and then do something else. Like, like I said, I can imagine this was conceived, you know, as an entirely digital product at one point. So it feels far, far more natural that it would be that way. I will say on the Xenoblade special edition thing ago, and I think I know it's been done for Xenoblade over here. I don't know if there's other games or whatever, but you do have now sometimes where, like with the Nintendo store over here, where they will, like, you can get the contents of the special edition shipped to you, but have the digital game. So
yeah, they don't do that in North America.
Yeah, I can imagine it's a bit thornier with the distribution sort of practicalities of the US doing things like that. But even still, I didn't do that for like Xenoblade 3 with the special edition in that case. But yeah, that would be the only way I could see that working, if it was like, oh, you really want the gold cartridge, or the, you know, if you would have the digital game but then still get the physical goodies. I mean, but yeah, I mean, the Famicom version in Japan is a bit nicer just because the box arts are nicer, and they've got like the replicas of the Famicom Disk System box arts and stuff, so there's like more variety.
And they have the Nintendo Switch Famicom controllers.
Yeah, which I think is the first time that controllers like that have actually been sold outside of like NSO memberships by Japan, right?
Yes, but it's obviously doesn't include the golden cartridge because there's no meaning for that in a Japanese audience. But while we're talking about that, Nintendo World Championship also doesn't mean anything to Japan, so
Yeah.
that's fundamentally confusing.
It's kind of nice that they're doing as much as they are doing for it in Japan in a way, because it doesn't seem like the product is particularly aimed at the Japanese market.
Yeah, it's not even, I don't know, the French-Canadian market. I can't say, I don't know, like, that's the thing. Like, I'm not surprised that you can still find this easily pre-orderable at Best Buy or whatever, because you'd have to care about the Nintendo World Championship brand, and
and that's a brand from the 90s.
Yeah, and there's only been 3 of them ever.
And it's been pretty US focused. It says world, but it's not world.
It's all US. It's all for people who have memories of 1990. And I will say, the Japanese bundle is 9,000 yen, which with the weak ass exchange rate that keeps saving Nintendo's ass, that is once again actually I think a little under $60. But you can't, it's only from the Nintendo store, so you can't actually import it, unfortunately. Right. I was curious enough to try that just for ease of access to the Famicom controllers, but not because I want the game. I will say, though, remarkable that they seem to be manufacturing way more physical copies of this than Endless Ocean, a game where it seems like they only made a bare minimum print run in the United States, and you can't find it physically anywhere.
Is that what Neil was trying to get?
Yes.
He couldn't, yeah.
Neil is
He was
back.
like, I think there's like no copies in the state of New Jersey. I saw
there's
like
that. One that is being shipped out to him from outside the tri-state area or some shit.
Yeah.
Because they do and I don't mean this as a meme, but when Devil's Third hit at the end of 2015 in North America, and it was just an obligation, they printed the absolute bare minimum. This feels like that, although it's not a game that they're ashamed of. So I don't know what's happening.
that's they need to rethink that stance. But
I don't know. I'm looking at Best Buy here. It looks like I could order it and get it tomorrow.
There you go. Well, that's the thing. I think the real missed opportunity here, and why this isn't selling, is they had the opportunity to make a Fred Savage figurine. It could have been life-sized. And, they just didn't do that. So.
I'm actually surprised that because their trailer had a bunch of contestants from the more recent Nintendo World Championships, and then they managed to track down the 1990 winner of the Nintendo World Championship and throw him into the North American ad as well.
Right.
I'm kind of surprised they didn't just be like, right, how much is Fred Savage on Cameo?
Right, and it could have been like they wouldn't have had to rewrite the part, right? Because that scene is like, hey guys, what are you playing? And it's like, who's this guy? Well, you just switch in Fred Savage, and it still works.
Yeah. Or just have another. Yeah, it's like, I don't know. Feels like a missed opportunity, considering that is, even though that the Wizard didn't have the Nintendo World Championship branding, that is actually what people associate it with.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Yeah. So I'm just looking at the deluxe set here. Replica game pack, 13 art cards, and a set of pins. It's like,
Hey, do you want to know? Do you want to know how much that cost Nintendo? Not $60.
Yeah,
cool. No, it's we've talked about this many times over the years. We've had variations about the question about special editions, and it's price discrimination. It's their way of getting people who are willing to pay more to pay more.
I will say that the margin is probably genuinely lower than buying $30 on the eShop, but not by a lot.
Yeah. I feel like 75% of people that buy this will probably just be hoping to flip it on eBay.
Speculative acquisitions.
Yeah. Oh yeah, just like the Xenoblade or Bayonetta or any of these other collector's editions, or the Scarf or whatever.
I do note that the way it's sort of characterized as NES edition somewhat kind of opens the door to another format.
Greg, yes. Tell me how good SNES remix is. what games are in SNES Remix?
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, they never got around to that. So
They put out 4 NES remixes and
they
no
did.
SNES.
That's the thing. Is it kind of that's where I was going with it. It's like on the one hand, it does open the door to that, but equally, the door was open back then, and they didn't go through it.
Yeah.
So I don't want to overpromise anything, especially is because, as you said, when you're trading off that kind of nostalgia of the 1990 World Championships and the Wizard and all that, well, that's all NES based. Now, obviously, as you also mentioned, it was the 2015, 2017 one, so like they had a bunch of like a mix of different things. But still,
Yeah, Nintendo World Report's own Bird and Beans.
Yeah. I remember, didn't they finish off one of those with like the Super Mario Brothers Deluxe versus mode or something?
Yes.
It was kind of a really interesting choice, but it actually kind of worked.
They were very much part of their game selection process for those modern ones was we want, because people who are like gonna know they're going to be on the stage are going to train on the obvious games, but we want games that they're never going to see coming. And so sometimes that was Super Mario Maker or Metroid Prime Federation Force Blast Ball, where it's like you are going to be the first people outside of Nintendo to play this. And then sometimes it was, fuck you, Bird and Beans on DSiWare. You see this coming? You practice this?
This is competition. Oh, Birds and Beans, what a checkered history.
It turns out, Bird and Beans.
Yes. Yes.
Need I say
a
more?
champion emerges, Zach Miller. Yeah. But yeah, so those were an interesting week of announcements for sure. So I guess, Sarin, I guess we'll move over to new business now. So Sarin, as always, you have a jam-packed new business. So
Yeah.
let's get into it. What's the first thing you're going to talk about here?
I have a lot of time because I got laid off in December, and I don't know if anyone here or anyone listening has looked at any news. There's no jobs in the games industry. No one's hiring. So,
Yeah. Everybody's been laid off. I mean, it continues, actually. I mean, this week.
With Microsoft.
Sidebar a little bit. Microsoft laid off. Xbox is in an interesting spot.
You mean Microsoft Gaming?
Yeah, Microsoft Gaming. I mean, I don't really know what they're doing or really what their whole goal is at this point. We're talking about this on Blue Sky, but
yeah, they shut down Arcane Austin and Tango Gameworks, and they say it's because those two studios just drew the short straw because they weren't deep into production on the game.
Yeah,
they were wrapping up. So goodbye, and then they needed to juice the numbers because now they have Call of Duty on their balance sheet. And now Satya Nadella is looking at that and saying, well, then where's the rest? Like, why isn't Xbox doing anything anywhere near as profitable as Activision? So, the Eye of Sauron is now on the Xbox division, and I don't know. I simply wouldn't have bought Activision Blizzard King if I wasn't prepared for it.
Yeah, and also, I was thinking how different is Xbox right now from the Embracer Group, where they just pretty much, aside from the fact that Embracer Group isn't stupid enough to actually make consoles anymore.
Yeah, well,
at all.
God, I mean, the Xbox team now, or Microsoft Gaming, has 30,000 employees or something, or at least had like last week. It's batshit. Also, Roundhouse. Because Roundhouse also is the one studio that was impacted that wasn't shuttered. They're now being shoved into becoming an Elder Scrolls Online support studio. They're local to me. They're in Madison, Wisconsin. Formerly known as Human Head.
Mm-hmm.
Developers of the Quiet Man, among other things. They've had a fucking checkered history. They were the studio that was making the original Prey 2. And then they shut them down, or they pulled them off of what they were doing at the same time as they shut down the studio that made Prey 2.
Excellent.
Just an absolute clusterfuck. Anyways, yes.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Today, as we're recording this, May 9th, is a banger day for indie game releases. You've got Crow County, which is a kind of PS1 style horror game from the developers of Snipper Clips. You've got Animal Well, which has been featured in multiple Nintendo presentations. You've got
which I've heard great things about.
Fantastic. I've only put like 2 hours in. Love it. Little Kitty Big City, which is best described as What If Stray Weren't Pretentious. And that came out today as well. It's also been in multiple Nintendo presentations, or at least one. 1000 Resist, or 1000X Resist if you're typing it, which is incredible. I played that last year when I was playing games for IGF nominations, the Independent Games Festival, and that game just blew me away as like one of the best narratives I've seen in a game in like the last 10 years. Highly recommended. All of those games are on Switch, by the way, and other platforms. And it kind of doesn't matter because Hades 2 surprise dropped on Monday. Which, like...
No big deal.
Kind of... I say this lovingly and not try to shit-talk any players in this industry. Kind of feels like a real fuck you got mine move to all of the teams that have spent months planning around this week.
Yeah.
That, oh, surprise, we could have told you when we're launching. We didn't.
Yeah. This is the kind of game where those teams would have loved to have planned a whole bunch of stuff around it.
Yes, like delays, like phoning everyone up and being like, we need to shift how far out can we push our release date to get the fuck away from Hades 2.
Yeah.
But nope, all those games came out the same week as Hades 2 because Supergiant just decided to. I have completed Hades 2 early access. It launches in early access. It's probably going to be in early access until the end of the year. The early access version has more content than the final version of Hades 1, but it is still not done.
What's not included?
So, you know how in Hades, once you beat Hades, which is the end point of the run, your character Zagreus gets sucked back home, and you have to keep doing the run again, and every time you make it up to Hades and beat him, more narrative gets delivered to you, and then you do that 10 times, and then credits roll.
Yeah.
So, it's not a spoiler, it's on the store page. The Hades final equivalent, the final boss equivalent in Hades 2 is Kronos, the god of time. You reach Kronos, you beat Kronos, and then voiceover comes in and is basically like, for now we have to accept an abrupt ending.
Yeah.
And then it just says, well, go back.
Yep.
But it's for...
So there is no kind of end game plus then.
There is, and I really don't want to spoil it, is the thing,
Yeah.
Hades 1 is 4 incredible areas that have 4 great bosses, and then you do that a bunch of times. Maybe there's a bit more to this, and I don't know how much to say for this game that just came out in early access, and I know a lot of people, especially in this audience, are going to be waiting for it to be done, / come to a console. But, there is more. There's a reason that I'm saying, even though, the narrative loop is not fully in yet, there is more here than in the entirety of Hades 1.
So you're saying there's a battle pass?
No. No, there is not. There's a lot more metagame stuff. There are way more currencies. There are so many more currencies. There's a crafting system. These are not jokes. Those are all really in Hades 2.
There's way more currencies?
Yes.
Yes. More to the battle pass.
One of them is a credit card. That's not a joke. the game really, really triples down on the horny, fan, the fact that fans latched on to some of the romance and sexuality aspects of the first game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really need to say.
What is it? What does it have? Like bikini mode or something like that?
There's a hot springs, and you can only go in with one other person. And when you go in, you have a conversation with them, and it shows a naked from the chest up bust portrait of them,
okay.
with wet hair and like the hair down and everything, and a lot of accessories and like hats and stuff removed, and it's zoomed in, and again, it is very
so.
clear.
In other words, it's very mature, is what you're saying.
Sure.
In our favorite way of being mature.
I would call it. I would call it more serious, more than more mature. But yes, I will say that there was one animation that like specifically had a character getting impaled, like a humanoid character getting impaled with red blood come out of them, and my brain is so broken that my knee jerk was, oh, they're gonna have to change that when they submit it to age ratings because that's gonna get them an M. I was like, you're gonna have to reduce the blood splatter on that one or change the color.
But is it rated M?
No, I mean it's not. It's only on PC right now. You don't need an age rating on PC, so it's not rated.
Oh, okay.
The
Yeah.
Hades one was only T, so I'm assuming they only want T.
Yeah.
But yeah, you play as Melanoe, who is Zagreus's sister. And your goal is to go kill time. And yeah, it's real fun. There's 5 weapons right now. I really like 3 of them. It plays like Hades, except every weapon has a dedicated primary attack, which is almost always melee. It has a dedicated cast, which is almost always ranged. It has a dedicated it has a dedicated special, which is almost always ranged. It has a dedicated cast, which is an AoE around your character, and then it has powered up versions of all of those that cost mana points. And it's it allows it to be a lot more tactically interesting. I got some really good runs in really early, and then kept on tripping over boons that basically said, get your boons from the previous night back. And so, in classic Seren playtime doesn't match reality, I have finished what is there in Hades 2 in 7 hours and 9 runs.
Mm-hmm.
No way is that going to be standard. That is going to be an extreme. Your mileage may vary based on your skill level, your familiarity, and your comfort level with these kinds of games, and your luck. Also, there is an easy mode in the settings that you could turn on now.
And was that just added as are they updating it right now? Repeatedly, or
they have not yet updated it in early access. I mean, it launched into early access 3 days ago, and right now they are very much focused on, I believe, monitoring, because they did the tech test, which was like monitoring technical stability. They're monitoring kind of player reception. The list, like their upcoming roadmap, has another area getting added, more music, another boss battle, another weapon. So, and probably just some fine-tuning. Honestly, it feels like what is here, it seems like it is pretty indicative of what the final game is going to be, and it's great.
Mm-hmm.
It's absolutely great. Very few notes.
Does it feel like more of the same, though, for the most part?
Yes, but significantly improved. I will say I got much more excited by it than when I played Spelunky 2 or Rogue Legacy 2. This feels differentiated enough by virtue of all of the weapons feel fresh. You're playing a different character. It's a specific character. Many of the characters around you are completely new / did not appear in the first game and or appeared in the first game in a very different role. And Kronos is kind of just a really, really good bad guy. It's a really, they do some really good fuck shit with it that I was not expecting. But I don't want to get any more specific because if I do, people will get mad at me for spoiling this game that's barely out.
Yeah, for the weapons, so you mentioned the kind of different, I guess, sounds like a second layer of abilities for the weapons. Does that feel like complexity for complexity's sake? Like, oh, it's a sequel, so we have to do more with the weapons?
No, that feels like, it feels like it is taking the weapons, like the kind of some of the weapon concepts that people didn't latch onto as much in the first game, and combining them with weapons that people did so that they could experience the best of both weapon sets at the same time. For example, one of the weapons in the current game is a two-handed battle axe, and you drag it behind you, and it's very slow, but it hits in a wide area, and it does a shit ton of damage. Just absolutely annihilates enemies. But when you, and I believe this is the right weapon, but the special, when you hold down the triangle button or the Y button to charge it up, that's your shield. And so this one actually has a shield, and you can block and you can parry, similar to like the shield mechanic on the weapon set in Hades 1, but that one was bad at offense and it was very good at defense. This time they're like, well, people didn't really gravitate towards the slow weapon, and they didn't really gravitate towards the defensive weapon, so what if we smash them together? And I think that changes things up enough that it's really, really good.
Good. Yeah. Yeah, because, I always wonder about that with sequels. I mean, is it just more for the sake of more? Which I always worry about.
No.
It's there was one attack on this weapon. Well, what if we added 3?
The other thing is, like, Supergiant, this is their 5th game, and it's their first sequel. And granted, Hades was far and away more successful than any of their previous games, but, like, I also have some level of faith that they wouldn't have made Hades 2 unless they felt excited about it and like they had more to say and more to do in that world and more to do with those mechanics. And from playing what they have now in Hades 2, I feel like they have accomplished that.
Yeah, I'm sure there was a certain level of stuff that they left on the cutting room floor for the first game, not really knowing how it would be received.
Yes, just like, oh, this would be a nice boss battle concept. Maybe we'll get to it one day. Also, and John, this might not resonate with a single listener, but this will resonate with you. It is so clear to me. You know how you'll see a lot of interviews or whatever, that when teams wrap up a big project that they've been really focused on for like 3 years, they talk about, oh, these are the games that I missed during development that I want to go back and put a lot more time into.
Yeah.
It's so clear that the lead gameplay designer, their game was Final Fantasy XIV. Because, let me tell you, some of these boss fights, I can literally point to the exact duties and trials that they just took boss battle mechanics from. There's like a lot of stuff about like, oh, we're going to cut a line down the middle and you're going to have to dance back and forth as we like set up full side AoEs, or everyone get in the middle of this ring. Now get to the outside of the ring. Now get to the middle of the ring.
Yes.
There's so
That's
much.
very Final Fantasy XIV. Yeah.
There's so much of that
Yeah.
in.
We're gonna create cross hatching, and you're gonna have to stand right in the middle of the cross hatching.
Yes.
And then switch it. We'll inverse it. And
Yes,
yeah.
and then, or we're gonna let up all 4 quadrants, and you're gonna have to. Simon says, "Remember the order that we let them up in," and then you're gonna need to jump to them in that order and hit all 4. Otherwise, it's an instant death. There's so much of that in Hades 2, and it's. As someone who is consistently playing a lot of FF14 right now to get ready for Dawn Trail, just clearing up all the odds and ends, trying to get as many jobs up to level 90 as possible. Very, very felt at home in Hades 2. And it'll be very funny because I can't wait for certain reviews to inevitably be like, they created so many unique mechanics.
Yeah. Not as unique as you think if you'd played Final Fantasy XIV.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, that one is Shiva, that one is the Praetorium, that one is But yeah, so I've been playing that. I've also been playing some Lorelei and the Laser Eyes, which is not out yet by the time this comes out. This is a game from Annapurna Interactive. It is launching on May. I should know something off the top of my head. I should have looked
May
this up.
16th, I think.
Yeah, 16th sounds right. I was going to say 16th, 17th, 18th. 16th, so it's actually coming out this coming week. It's coming out on PC and Nintendo Switch. I don't know what to say about this game other than this game is for fucking sickos. And I am sicko, by the way. This includes me. But this game basically more or less opens with pull out a notebook and a pencil. You're gonna regret you didn't if you don't.
Yeah.
Walk around.
So it's like Ultima 1, effectively.
Build a map. Learn what, oh, you see a code here? You might not need that code for 5 hours. You will.
Yeah, but there's some sort of in-game notebook that's just going to store that and then tell you when to use it. No?
Not in the fucking slightest. This is a game for sickos. This is a game that does not care if you finish it or not. And I love that, and I respect it so much. This is by by Simogo, the developers of Sayonara Wild Hearts and Device 6 and Year Walk. And
yeah, I was going to say, I've only played Year Walk. I don't remember it being all that, cerebral.
Mm-hmm.
So this seems like a different direction for them, no?
I mean, yeah, their Sayonara Wild Hearts was just a Carly Rae Jepsen pop album narrated by Queen Latifah. So, also not a joke.
I know, yeah.
So, yes, they take a lot of different swings. One thing I will say is, it's published by Annapurna Interactive. Shout-outs to them for sending code over my way. Not even for preview. I didn't tell them I was going to talk about it on a podcast. I just said, can I play it? And they said yes. Shout-outs. But this game is not for everyone. I don't know how to describe it other than if you...
Who is it for beyond sickos?
No one. Literally.
Now,
if you heard
but is that
me
because
discuss...
it's too obtuse, or
Yes.
just because it makes things too difficult?
No, it does not overcomplicate things. It just really, really respects your intelligence and understanding and your ability to make deductions. And
Well, I'm in trouble then.
and does not give a fuck if you're not up to the task. And if that sounds appealing to you, to play something that is genuinely smart and hopes that you are smart and understand that, and to be able to navigate this world, then this game has my... This is not a review. The review embargo is not up. In a preview capacity, this game has my highest of recommendations, but this is a game where I feel like it's really hard for me to recommend this to literally anybody, because if you are feeling neutral to negative about everything I've just said, nah.
Could you still have fun if you just like to pick at it, you know, a little bit and then maybe never finish it? Like,
If you're
I never
comfortable
finished.
never finishing it, yes.
Yeah, I never finished La Mulana, but I had a good time with what I played. Like, is it a little bit like that, or?
I mean, La Mulana is a lot more execution focused.
Sure.
This is not like a platformer. This is a walk around the rooms and figure out puzzles. This is a thinky game. And
Right, like Seventh Guest.
fucking no.
Exactly like Seventh Guest.
Fucking no.
But we say that about everything.
Yeah, no, it's not a
Can-
Seventh Guest like.
Can you die in this game? Is there anything beyond just puzzles and walking around two puzzles and?
I don't know what I can say.
Can the puzzles kill you?
Not that I think. Not.
Okay.
I'm gonna go out and say no question mark.
Okay.
And you can take that as you will, and you can opt to include this in the podcast if you would like. I don't care either way. But yes, it's a really. I know that Neil is reviewing it for Nintendo World Report. I have not shared puzzle solutions with him. I know 3 people that are all playing this game, and I've been in a situation where I've been playing really obtuse games before they come out before. My absolute one of the lowest moments of my life was being on the review for Paper Mario Sticker Star and going to a fucking GameStop pre-release and pulling the manager aside and begging them to sell me the strategy guide in the back before street date because I couldn't figure this fucking game out and what it wanted from me because there's no guides yet.
It's like a junkie with a $2 habit.
Again, one of the lowest moments of my life. But definitely, like, I haven't...
Were you sweating and pale when you asked him
No.
for the strategy guide?
No. But I have not wanted to ask anyone for their notes or their tips. Like, if I get stuck, I kind of get excited, but that's just who I am as a player, right? Like, in case, because it's been a few years actually, in case people don't know me, I guess I should have introduced myself. One of the things that I do every year is I organize a Steam event called Cerebral Pulse Showcase, which is starting on May 23rd this year, where we're featuring, it's a heavily curated event, we're featuring over 100 incredible games that are thinky, whether it's like games that are approachable to be someone's first game, or for people who are like live and die by this genre, or by like this mode of play. This game is not for people who for whom this is like your first game. Like if you've played a lot of like, especially like Annapurna's other games like Outer Wilds and Cocoon and Storyteller and Gorogoa and like their thinky games, and like you want a significant step up in difficulty, I would say give it a try. But like, you gotta know what you're going into, that this is not an easy game, and if you look something up online that is like actively going to be like removing gameplay, it's like looking something up online is not going to be like, tell me where to go and then I can go play the game. I'm just like lost in like what this quest wants from me. Like any piece of information is part of the gameplay experience to go and find it. So you'll see more reviews. I say this literally not knowing what Neil's going to give it and not going to and like not knowing anything about what the critical reception is going to be. I'm expecting probably high 70s Metacritic, just because I think that there are going to be some reviewers who fucking hate this kind of game, and some reviewers for whom this is the best thing they've ever played, and they're never going to shut up about it for the next 10 years.
Is it kind of like for that type of game? When you describe games like that, I always think of Ikaruga, where you can play that game and it's undoubtedly a classic game, but it is so difficult that it is just going to turn some people off, and you can completely say when you review that game that this is a great game, but a lot of people are going to hate it, and it's not for everybody.
Yes, no, yes. This is a good game that is definitively not an easy recommendation.
Yes.
Like
I would not recommend Ikaruga to most people. The vast majority of people, I would say, stay away from that game, even though it's fantastic.
Yes, like there's a lot of games that I play especially as part of the sort of puzzle showcase process, because like I said, it's curated, which means I or someone else from the team, usually I, just because I'm interested, check out every single one of these submissions. They all come with builds or Steam codes, and I play as many of them as I fucking can. And let me tell you, there are some where I'm like, holy shit, this is great, and I will never recommend this to a single person. Like, there's some where I'm like, oh, your gameplay concept is so good, ... Your presentation is so atrocious that this game is literally unrecommendable. But this is not that. This is not a, like, your presentation is so, like, no, it's gorgeous, it plays well, it's just, deliberately obtuse.
Yeah. So it's how games used to be back in the day.
Yeah, this is like if you rented Myst and did not have a... Okay. Let me take a step back and correct myself. This is like if you pirated Myst and did not have an instruction manual or anything, or even any frame of reference as to what the game is, and then you jump into it. What the fuck do you do then?
Yeah, so it reminds me of back in the Commodore 64 days when you would get pirated games and they would just be games on a disc, and you would say, I don't even know how to play this. What is even going on?
Yeah, like what are the verbs? What are the And instead of this, it's not like, again, it's not like what are the verbs. It is more just like what is the intentionality? But then when you do understand the intentionality, it's not like anything is random. Like, everything is very, very well thought out, and it is like a tremendously gratifying experience to piece it all together and like to make progress in this game. Like, it is fantastic. I really want to emphasize, it's not hard for hard's sake. It's not obtuse for obtuse sake. It is very, very much succeeding in everything they are setting out to do. And by the end of this segment, you know if this game is for you or not. You know if this is now something that you need to go wishlist right now, or something that you are going to avoid for the rest of your life.
Yeah, so it sounds like it's a game for people that are prepared to bang their head against something until they figure it out.
Or play a lot of these kinds of games and typically find them too easy or too handholdy.
Yeah.
I will end by saying that a friend of mine once described games like this as the you wanna bet response to people who complain about, like, God of War telling you the puzzle answers when you walk into a puzzle room.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you find it annoying that a trace is telling you, have you tried pushing this? You want to bet? Try this. But yeah, I've been playing a lot, but those are kind of the most relevant things for now.
Cool. All right. Let's see. Let's move on to Guy.
All right, so I played a little bit of the demo on the Xbox. Now, I haven't tried the Switch version, although I'm sure it's good. The demo for Promenade, which is a game that came out at least a month ago, I think. When did John write his review? February? So two months ago. Promenade is a 2D platformer, and John Reardon's description was pretty intriguing. He was saying that basically this was a 2D side-scrolling platformer that had both its feet, on each side of the line that divides 2D platformer design ethos and 3D platformer design. So basically, like, what if Banjo-Kazooie was a 2D platformer, but had like the mission structure of something like Banjo-Kazooie? So I thought, like, well, that's interesting. I like 2D platformers more than I like 3D ones, mainly because I'm kind of over the whole like sprawling world thing, and the collectathon aspect, or also I was kind of I was complaining a lot when Super Mario Odyssey came out because I'm kind of over just like nudge the camera just over this little corner here so that you can see that there's a coin, a purple coin that's hiding. Like, I feel like it's a lot of stuff that I've seen before, and that I'm not that interested in. Like, looking around corners, whoop-de-doo. So, so I'm pretty...
Camera games within the game just drive me nuts.
Yeah, so I'm a blasé asshole, and so I decided, like, okay, let me check out this game, or at least the demo, and I'm surprised. It's I really enjoy it, and thankfully, this is not a game about looking around, nudging the camera around corners, because it is 2D. The mission structure is more, and I should have replayed the demo to refresh my memory here, but basically, like, you have, in the demo at least, like this one stage. And there's various doodads that you need to collect, because of course. But you collect them, you make them appear by, solving simple puzzles, doing some platforming, and finding some secrets. And so in the demo, you've got this kind of... this beach scene where there's like a ship on the right of the level. Then if you go to the left, you've got a lighthouse. And then you start seeing with the, there's, you can, so your character is a little boy who's befriended some sort of squid that he can shoot in front of him for like, one character length, maybe, like, not very far. It's not, you shoot it, it comes back to you, but it's not like a boomerang. It's more like, what was that thing called in, God damn it. Why am I blanking out on this Namco game?
Klonoa?
Klonoa, of course, yes.
What is it? Is it wind bullets or something with the Klonoa
wind
shoots?
Bullets, yeah. But, like, isn't the little creature called Kupo or something, or...
That's just making me think of Final Fantasy.
Right.
That doesn't mean it's not true.
Two different... Yes,
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. But you're right, yeah, wind bullet. So basically, like, your squid that you throw in front of you is basically the wind bullet in Klonoa. And it acts as basically the same thing. So it allows you to catch enemies, and when you catch them, you can throw them in front of you. Now, it doesn't just like shoot it straight in front of you, like without any kind of, like, there are physics, like there's kind of an angle to it, like there's an arc, and like you can't throw the things that you pick up all that far, and it's kind of dependent on how fast you're moving also. So there's like, some physics stuff that I struggled with a little bit there, but mostly like you're not picking up enemies to throw them in front of you most of the time. You're picking them up so that you can have your double jump. So it's exactly like Klonoa in that way. And so, so you find out, okay, you can pick up enemies. There are these, on the ship, there are these cannons, and turns out you can pick up the cannonballs that they shoot. To the left of the stage, you've got the lighthouse, and you've got these, like, boxes strewn around. And you can pick those up too, and like, okay, interesting. Now, there's a doodad that you can pick up across a little body of water. And I'm like, okay, let's go swim to it. Well, my little guy can't swim. He gets rescued by the squid, but like, it's instantly like, okay, like you fade out, and then you're out of the water where you respawn from where you jumped in. Okay, what can I do here? Well, one of the boxes is floating in the water. Okay, so I'm going to go pick up some boxes. I'm going to make myself a bridge. I'm going to, and then I'm going to jump on the boxes and make it across and get the doodad. That works. Cool. So I got one doodad. The game doesn't throw you back to the menu to select another level or anything. You can just keep playing. All right. So you make it further to the left. You've got like this little penguin dude with a jetpack. Not like in Batman Returns now, but now I kind of wonder if it's kind of an homage. But yeah, so, and you can see like there's like a race starting line. So if you cross to his side of the race starting line, you get the countdown, and then basically like at 0, you're in a race with the penguin. If you beat him, then, like it demands like some pretty tight platforming. You can't make too many mistakes. But then like you make it to the finish line, you get another do that. Cool. You go to the right, you go to the abandoned kind of pirate ship. You see on the wall a map, and you can see like a drawing of the lighthouse and like an X, to the bottom left. And so you realize like, okay, like there was something hidden over there. So you just trek across again to the other end of the stage. You find the hidden chest, and you got another doodad. Cool. But eventually, like it started, like I was running out of things that were obvious to do, and that's when the game got a little bit more interesting. Like, so there was a thing, like there was a section where there was a bridge, and under it there was a thing that I could collect, but it was beyond a body of water that was way too long to kind of like what I had been trying to do was like, okay, get a cannonball, that because there was a cannon nearby. Try to, jump down where I can, kind of use my double jump to try to make it across. It's not quite enough, but I was trying to jump my timing, to time my jump so that I could catch another cannonball above me and use, like, get a second double jump that way. Could never quite get the hang of it. I kind of think maybe I could have if I had kept trying, but eventually I realized, like, oh wait, those boxes are still over to the left side of the stage, like pretty far, but not so far that it would be annoying to go get them. So eventually I realized, like, okay, I'm just supposed to bring all those boxes that are in a completely separate part of the level, and that allows me to get this doodad to solve this puzzle. So that's kind of where the demo started impressing me a little bit, like, because there's kind of a permanence to the objects that you don't normally see in a lot of 2D platformers. Like enemies will respawn, but usually, like, if you break a box, like either it's gone or it's going to respawn or it's going to kind of snap back into place when you exit and then come back. But here everything stayed in its place, and it's just up to you to figure out, like, well, do I want to go to the other side of the stage and go pick up these things and, like, solve this puzzle.
With persistence, does it open it up to you screwing things up?
Maybe, but I just felt like that's hard to say. Like, maybe in later levels, like, I kind of wonder, could I have somehow stranded myself onto a bit of land, like, actually, yeah, no, I don't think so. Like, I think that I would have had an out. Like, if I had across a body of water and then, like, thrown away the box that got me there, like, there was still, like, I could have escaped some other way. Like, I think that they've planned stages that way. So, they've thought about it. But yeah, I can't speak as to, what the whole game is like. But yeah, like, eventually also, like, so I found a page in some sort of notebook, and it showed, like, the doodads that I was missing in the stage, and I realized, like, okay, I can race that penguin a second time. And that second race, of course, it's harder, he's much faster. It kind of feels like it's impossible. Like, eventually I remembered that the game taught me about, like, a move, like, if you press down and forward and your attack or is that your jump? Anyway, like, you can start rolling and, like, you go much faster than when you're just running left and right. So I remember that, but even then, like, remembering that, like, like he was skipping with his jetpack so many steps that I was like, well, there's no way. Like I have to, run to the right, and then like there's like kind of like the section where I have to kind of first stage of Donkey Kong my way up platforms to make it to the finish line, and it just doesn't work. And then I remembered, like, wait a minute, those boxes, can I just set them up to kind of cheat? To create a shortcut for myself, so that instead of making it up that scaffolding, Donkey Kong style, like I can just, create my double jumps that I need, so that I can, finish the race more quickly. And I could again, because those boxes are like they're there for that reason. But initially, you might not realize that that's what they're there for, and that you can just, kind of logic your way into kind of a race win.
Yeah, you can sort of feel like you're sort of breaking the almost sequence breaking it a little bit.
Yeah, but it was clearly like, I think that was like the whole point. Like they designed it that way, but like never did the game nudge me into like, hey, like remember those boxes. Like it's not like, it was kind of refreshing that it was like no, like all of a sudden some arrow pointing out like, hey, remember those boxes? Maybe you can just
like, here's your toolbox. Do with it what you will. We're not going to stop you from doing anything, but we're not going to tell you what to do either.
Right. So I was pleasantly surprised. The game, looks really good. The music was nice. The one issue I have, and John Raridan points it out in his review, is that the controls are a little bit sometimes finicky. Like I felt like sometimes I would press the jump button and it wouldn't quite react immediately. I don't like, at first I thought like, is this because I'm playing on the Xbox? I don't love the Xbox controller for this type of game. But like seeing that John had the same issue in his review, like kind of confirmed to me like, oh, it's the platforming sometimes being frustrating is not totally on me. The demo has two other parts. Like there's a boss fight, which was okay. I don't really have much to say about it, but there was also like kind of a platforming challenge where basically you can throw your little squid guy onto like it basically use him as a hook shot, but like a hook shot that basically you're just like it's like an elastic, like you kind of slingshot your way across the hook that you just latch onto, like it will shoot you up in the direction, in the opposite direction. So you throw your squid up, and then like if you have to time your jump at the right time, right when you're kind of pulled up to the hook point, so that you just like slingshot past it. And there's like this really tough platforming course that was like required a lot of precise timing, and I was on the verge of kind of wanting to give up, but eventually like I pushed through. But I feel like I'm past the age when I feel good playing those games and those sections, that really tough platforming challenge, and I kind of don't want to deal with it. I tried to play Celeste just a couple of months ago, again on Xbox, because it was on Game Pass, and I felt like I couldn't do it, like that those strawberries were so tantalizing, but I was clearly not skilled enough to jump at the exact right time to catch one of them in between two things that could kill me, and I just gave up on that game. And I kind of felt like that challenge stage in that demo of Promenade kind of gave me the same vibe, like, oh my god, like I'm so close to just giving up on this, because I prefer the more chill kind of Banjo-Kazooie-esque version of the other stage in the demo. But yeah, so I really enjoyed it. I think I might give the full game a shot pretty soon. It was really fun, and I don't know if it got overlooked. I haven't heard a whole lot about it, so I kind of do have a feeling that it got overlooked. So I might try to fix that on my end.
Yeah, I've just been watching a playthrough of the demo here, and it looks interesting.
Yeah.
Really
it's
colorful,
cute,
cartoony. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a cute little game. It's really well made.
Yeah, what's playing here is it's the shipwreck level.
Right.
So.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Greg, what do you got? Anything? A little bit of this, a little bit of that?
Yeah, nothing too concentrated. I did take a moment to mess around a little bit with Extreme G that was on the NSO with Iggy's Wrecking Balls that he was so taken with when that was announced. Yeah, which I think, if I'm not mistaken, because again we talked about this a little bit last week with James talking about the Mission Impossible N64 game. You know, again, N64 magazines, you know, would end up covering certain things quite prominently that you rather felt like they wouldn't have. If you know certain publishers basically didn't exist on N64, so I think it's the whole thing with Iggy's Wrecking Balls is like that was like the iguana like developer mascot or something, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just like this little character to kind of you know, and they were prominent N64 developer, you know, because of the T-Rock games, yeah, but they made that as well, and some of them end up at Retro, I think, you know, once you got into the aughts. Yeah, I think some of the people that worked in Texas at that time.
Yeah, they did. This is, you know, and then maybe got arrested and...
I've had vague memories of some unpleasantness there, but I can't get into the specifics and I don't recall them, but yeah.
Running a porn server on Nintendo's servers.
Wow. Well.
Yeah.
There we go. So Iggy's Wrecking Balls. No, Extreme G was the one I've tested so far, because that was the one that got covered more. Like Iggy's Wrecking Balls did get covered for whatever you know, reasons that we've already talked about, and I might try it for the hell of it, you know, because just at some point. But Extreme G was something that was of more interest, you know, because as was mentioned, I think as well, you know, when the games were put up a couple of weeks ago. It was very much a kind of thing. Well, F-Zero's not out yet, which was different, of course, because F-Zero was like a launch game on Super Nintendo. But F-Zero X did not arrive until a fair way into 1998, as I remember, you know, 2 years in. So you had that kind of void, but then also, of course, Wipeout, especially over here, given, you know, the developer pedigree and just the appetite for racing games. Wipeout was a very big deal on PlayStation. So there was that kind of thing as well. So, well, you know, people who have an N64, maybe they want that kind of thing. So I certainly remember it getting, you know, lots of coverage and pretty solid reviews and stuff. So yeah, I thought I'd give it a little go, and I haven't played it terribly much, but I think, yeah, I mean, the sensation of speed is certainly not where F-Zero X is, but of course F-Zero X really pared everything back to get that, you know, in terms of the detail, you know, and in the cars and the environments and everything. You know, this is, you know, was trying a bit to, you know, probably mimic, you know, other kind of futuristic races on the market rather than go. And I mean, again, with NSO for N64, the frame rate is usually not the way it was originally. You know, it's usually a little bit smoother. It's not, you know, like GoldenEye, you know, for instance, does not quite go to the same crawl when some crates explode. Or, you know, Sin and Punishment's turbo mode is much, much, much more playable, because originally you had two options with that. You could either put the frame skip on when it was when it was struggling to run, which would make it like almost sickness inducing to look at, or you could not do that and then it would just slow down and cease to be a turbo mode, whereas like it actually works relatively well on NSO. So it's kind of, I don't know exactly how this correlates with the original Extreme G, but you know, the sensation of speed is sort of respectable for a game of this vintage, it seemed to me, just on the first inspection. And you know, you've got a fair bit more going on, you know, with than like compared to an F-Zero game in terms of like weapons and stuff. So, and it, you know, I'll have to give it a bit more of a go, but I was always under the impression that the sequels were better liked. So that's always kind of the Yeah, the thing with that, isn't it, is like, well, are they coming at some point? I mean, I know it's like this, some company that just bought up, claims from certain properties from the bankruptcy, throwback is their logo, because they have the box arts from back in the day, but it doesn't have a claim on the box anymore. It has this throwback logo on there for this company that just buys up stuff. So presumably you would think if you're going to do a deal with them, for this, I think he's wrecking ballsy with it. The sequels, could be a part of that, but I have no idea if they're particularly likely at some point down the line. But I think I could see myself messing around with it a little bit more in the future. Another thing, I'm not only early on with it, so I'll probably save it for another time, especially because that's, I got to play more into it to actually get to the stuff that's new. I finally did get the Kirby's Return to Dreamland remake that came out last year for Switch. So that's, kind of a bit ago I played the sort of Switch original Kirby side scroller Star Ally. So, kind of that was my Kirby fix for then. So it was always going to be a while later, but it was a decent price at a physical copy. And I felt like, yeah, that's kind of what I'm in the mood for right about now. So I've just set about getting through that. But, and I mean, that's the thing, because this, game was the beginning of a kind of resurgence in the traditional Kirby side-scrolling kind of gameplay that went through Triple Deluxe and Planet Robobot and Star Allies. It's deceiving how long ago it actually was. I mean, it was at the very end of Wii, but that's still, 13 years ago or whatever. So
Yep.
I probably played it more like in 2012, but still, like, it's... Yeah, it is like, I haven't played this in a very, very long time, and definitely, like, I played it, a lot of it actually did play it co-op, and not on the greatest kind of display and stuff. So, with the new graphics on the OLED and all that, it certainly looks a fair bit nicer than I remember, as you might imagine. But yeah, in terms of like the new stuff with the Magalore mode and all that kind of stuff, I'm nowhere near being able to talk about that. So we'll get to that probably next week.
All right. Sounds good. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot of new business. It's funny, Seren, that you bring up Final Fantasy XIV, because this week, the one thing I did manage to do, or last weekend, was I finally played through the campaign of the base game of Final Fantasy XIV.
Woo!
Now,
You're almost at the part where it gets good.
Yeah, well, see, that's the thing. So I thought so I did roll credits. I beat, oh God. I'm completely blanking on it right now.
Gaius von Belsar?
Yes. I finally beat him. But there's still actually more to go in the campaign quest.
Oh, John. So you completed the content that was available on the launch day of 2.0. Then, in the years between that and the first expansion, every few months they added another dozen or so main story quests, all of which are very important to lead into the events of Final Fantasy XIV Heaven's Word, the first expansion.
Yeah. So this is like kind of my little side project where I'm just playing through all of the campaign stuff. One of the things, like I've said before, one of the things I really like about Final Fantasy XIV is it's a very solo-able game.
Oh, yeah.
So you can just play through with NPCs and stuff like that. So I have Dawn Trail pre-ordered, so I am just going through this.
Yeah, get that earring.
Just playing through everything. Yep, I have.
What job are you using?
Right. Well, I'm warrior.
So you're tanking.
Tanking with a bunch of NPCs. So I'm not really tanking. I'm not really doing anything that involves any risk or any ridicule.
Just drawing enough enmity for each individual wave, I would assume.
Yeah, I'm pretty much grabbing monsters and turning them around so their butt faces my party. Pretty much is what I'm doing.
That's all you need to do when you're playing with NPCs.
Yeah, so there you go. But yeah, enjoying it, and I just find it hilarious because this got me going back into the archives, and I originally bought this game, I just played through.
Yeah,
I bought this 11 years ago.
Yeah, so, this is the 11th anniversary of the 14 relaunch.
Yeah, and So I found that hilarious, and I went back and I went through old emails, and I actually had the PS3. I forgot this even existed,
Yes.
but there was a PlayStation 3 beta.
Yes, there was.
Of the very first version of Final Fantasy XIV.
Yes, there was a PS3 beta of 1.0 and of 2.0.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where I kind of maybe I played it and just I bounced off of it, but I wish I would have stuck with it because I don't know. I actually really enjoy playing it. Maybe it's just because it's the Xbox controller and I like the Xbox controller or whatever.
It's better than the PS3 controller, that's for fucking sure.
Yeah, that's for sure. This game, this game did not play well on a controller.
So yes, Final Fantasy the people call them patch quests, the quests to get from the end of an expansion to the beginning of the next expansion. So there's a lot of them to get to Heaven's Word, but Heaven's Word is I made the joke about like, oh, this is where the game gets good. This is where like the writing starts to become extremely award-winning, specifically. Like it's a lot of the same game design, but like, oh, suddenly you're gonna be like go like I was gonna say a bunch of themes like regicide and theocracy and class warfare and I don't want to say too much more, but like Heaven's Word is really, really cool. And then Stormblood sucks. And the Shadowbringers is great. And then Endwalker is very good.
Yeah.
And each one is a full-length JRPG. Sorry. Yeah,
well, I've heard a lot about the Final Fantasy XIV story, and up to this point, it's just been kind of hokey a little bit.
Yeah. A Realm Reborn was very much them just trying to prove that they could make a competent video game, because the first launch of Final Fantasy XIV did not demonstrate that. And then in terms of like where does the good single player story like really come through with like twists and turns and like unique character interactions and like dynamics and lots of flavorful writing, like all that shit comes in Heaven's Word.
Yeah, I also played through the Final Fantasy XVI crossover story where you help Clive do all of this goofy stuff, and then you get the Torgal pup at the end.
I'm glad that you got that before that expired. Are you going to go do the Yokai Watch event that's currently running?
I'm trying to do that. That's a little bit more complicated, just in terms of having to go get all of the different minions, then get all the different weapons, and go into the different areas, do different fates, and all that kind of stuff. So
that's
I'm going to try. Nightmare. Yeah, when does that expire?
That expires at the launch of Dawn Trail.
Okay, then is that June?
Yeah, and then end of June, early July.
I don't think it's gonna happen.
And then they're gonna also in a couple weeks they're gonna rerun the Dragon Quest X event. They're just rerunning all of the time limited events.
Yeah.
But once you get to Stormblood, you can do the Monster Hunter crossover and ride around on a Rathalos and have a Palico follow you around.
Yeah, see, that's one of the things I like about Final Fantasy XIV. There's a lot of dumb shit in this game.
There's so much dumb shit in this game.
Yeah, there's a lot. Like the Yokai Watch stuff. I mean, if you do all the Yokai Watch stuff, I mean, the mount that you get is insane.
Oh yes, you get both a giant Whisper and a giant Jibanyan, and you can just fly them around, and it's so funny.
Yeah. So I'm gonna try to do that. I don't know if I will, but I mean, there's just it seems like it's a very achievable amount of medals that you need.
Oh yeah. Like definitely, to get the minions is really, really viable. To get all the weapons is a little bit chaotic, but it's still doable. Have you done any of the crafting and gathering?
Not much. But I am doing. I did a little bit of fishing.
Oh god, yeah. The fishing is the one that I don't co-sign, but all the rest is.
Yeah, the other stuff. Let's see what else am I doing? I was doing, I think, blacksmith.
Yep.
Well, I've actually only done. Well, I just picked up retainers. A couple of retainers.
Yes.
So that got me doing. So in order to get them to go out and gather for you, you have to do the mining.
Yep.
You have to do that kind of stuff. So that's sort of what I'm doing now. I just did a little bit of mining and a little bit of gathering.
Did you get the retainers for the extra inventory?
Yes.
Yes. For people who do not play Final Fantasy XIV, you have a limited inventory size, and you can pay extra in your monthly subscription to get additional inventories.
Yeah, and it's funny, when you go on Reddit, there's people that are just absolute dead set, I will not pay for extra retainers. It's like this kind of philosophical thing where people are like, I will never pay for an extra retainer.
John, here is your pro tip if you want to save a little bit of money and get a little extra bang for your buck. The mobile companion app has a premium subscription service that is the same price as a retainer, and that gets you both an extra retainer and an extra Chocobo Saddleback.
Oh, okay.
So
is that the $5 a month thing?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. I don't know. I've been known to pay $5 a month for this and that.
And then forget about it for a couple of years? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I paid that much for GTA Online Plus for a little while.
Why?
And then I was like, why? Why am I doing this?
Well,
why?
It's a great question. Why were you paying for that?
It was aspirational. I'll say that. You know, I was like, man, this is
like
going to be
a game
it.
I can get into.
Yeah. This is going to be it. This is going to be where I'm going to strike out and become a guru in GTA Online. And then I was like, why am I doing this?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's like when I subbed for 1 month on Peacock because I wanted to watch one episode of the Knuckles show and see how bad it was, and then the next day, as a marketing strategy, they uploaded the first episode to YouTube.
Yeah.
And I felt so fucking stupid. I felt conned.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyways, that show's bad.
Yeah. But yeah, so still enjoying that, you know. So it's good to see, it's good to hear that this is where the story gets really good. So.
Oh, yes. I think that you are going to get real sucked into it once you get to Heaven's Word proper.
Yeah, I mean, I've stuck with it thus far, and thus far it's been, you know, some stuff that's been pretty cringy, but, you know.
Yes.
But the thing is, though, there is some cool stuff, though, with some impressive cutscenes that I didn't really expect.
Oh,
you know,
and this is you're playing A Realm Reborn and Heaven's Word were PS3 as like a target spec. They dropped PS3 after Heaven's Word, and then it starts getting way more impressive. And now, with the 7.0 update that will release Dawn Trail, they're actually just overhauling the graphics of the game entirely.
Yeah.
They put out a new benchmark on PC. It looks great. And they're giving everyone a free trip back to the character creator because characters are going to start looking different.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I was wondering about that because, I mean, it's especially obvious when you do the Final Fantasy XVI quest because Clive's character looks so much better than my character's armor. Like, my character's armor is very pixelated.
Yep.
And Clive looks great. He almost looks as good as he does in the actual Final Fantasy XVI game. So
yes. No, they're rolling out a whole new client. They have said that, yes, it will still support PS4 and Series S. Expect it to run a lot worse there, though. Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah.
Is basically what they said.
Yeah, I mean, it looks really good on Series X.
Yeah.
Looks really, really nice. You know, really, I think the biggest difference is the draw distance. Like, you can see a lot. It really makes the world look a lot better because you can see a lot further.
Mm-hmm.
And in this game, that's really important because there's gorgeous, like, castles and stuff in the background and really impressive. So,
and also, like, you need to, especially when you are going on, like, long flights, you really want to be able to see where you're going ahead of time.
Yeah, that's another thing. I just unlocked flying, which is funny coming from World of Warcraft, especially where I can fly. How I feel like so early in the game.
Oh, you are going to lose your mind when you get to Heaven's Word.
Makes it a lot harder.
Because in Heaven's Word, they're going to teach you about how to fly. Because Heaven's Word introduced flight, and then they eventually just ported it back into A Realm Reborn, but they did it really haphazardly, so they just kind of give it to you without really making a big deal of it, and then they still teach you in Heaven's Word. This is what flight is. Did you know that if you like your mount enough, you can teach it to fly?
That's funny. Yeah. But is it the same in Heaven's Ward where you eventually hit the ceiling?
Yes.
Yeah.
that becomes a little much less severe once you get into Heaven's Word and later, because the original Realm Reborn areas were never designed for flying.
Yeah.
So
That's the same with World of Warcraft, where there's some areas where I still think they still don't have flight, just because if you flew over some of the areas, they would look terrible.
Yes,
because there's part of the world that just wasn't meant to be seen from above.
You can fly everywhere except the city-states in FF14.
Yeah. So yeah, it's cool. So I'm just going to keep plugging away at it. So it's good to finally finish that off. Only took 11 years.
What data center are you on? You don't have to say this on there. Oh, okay.
I don't care. I mean, I'm not doing anything on there. But that's where I'm at.
Awesome.
Which it's funny because I moved to that world because it was one of the ones where you were getting an incentive because it was supposedly kind of empty, but every time I log on, there's a little bit of a queue.
There's always a little bit of a queue, though. At least it goes fast.
Did they just do that?
Yeah. Yes, you are on one of the new data centers, because they've spun up a ton of data centers in the last few years, because when Endwalker launched in the middle of COVID, and like a year after the largest influx of players in the game's history, the queues were literally like over 1,000 people long, and like you were getting disconnected in the queue, and it was a nightmare. Like you were having to like queue up like 3 hours before you started playing, and they basically said, "We can't spin up any servers to solve this issue right now. We're sorry. Instead, we are going to spend the next 3 years spinning up so many servers and data centers that this will hopefully not be an issue when the next one rolls around." So this will be the test of that.
Yeah, just in the last couple of days, they were actually getting DDoSed. So.
Oh, I mean, I don't know what that's about, but yes.
Yeah. But yeah. So just still plugging away at that. So hopefully, getting to the end of Heaven's Ward will not take another 11 years. So.
No, it'll probably only take you about 6 months.
Yeah. So so that will wrap up new business. We're going to take a break here. We've been going for a while, and I think on the other side of the break, we'll probably take a couple of emails and then call it at that. So we will see you after the break. Welcome back, everybody. We have one email that we are going to go through here, but I think it's on a broad topic, so I think it should generate some good discussion. This is from Brian McNally, and I'll read it. He says, "Dear distinguished gentlemen of the RFN podcast,
and lady,
recently, and lady in this case, recently I couldn't help but to notice the parallels between the fall of the Hollywood blockbuster and the AAA game. I feel like I can say that both industries are currently plagued by mediocre big-budget projects that expect to ride trending concepts and known IPs to the finish line of profitability. Is it mere coincidence that we find ourselves in a time when both of these industries find themselves the victims of their own delusional grandeur, or is it the product of late-stage capitalism which expects ever-growing profits?" Brian. Yeah, so this this dovetails quite nicely with this week's news of Xbox closing down, inexplicably closing down several of its prominent studios: Arcane Austin, Tango Gameworks. What else? What did I miss?
Name
there?
the other two. No, you got it. You can do this.
Oh my god, I'm blanking. Absolutely blanking on them.
One starts with R, one starts with A.
Roundhouse.
Yep.
And Alpha Dog.
Yes, you got him.
And what's funny about Alpha Dog is when I was playing Mighty Doom, I was sitting there saying, "Man, this ain't gonna last long. No one's gonna play this." And sure enough, it was axed. Which also is ironic because of Microsoft crowing about how they were trying to get into the mobile space, which really means, we just basically want to use King. Pretty much.
Literally 3 hours before we started recording, Sarah Bond was at a Bloomberg event talking about how they want to use all of their great mobile apps that are first party to launch a new app store next month.
Yeah, I saw that.
And did not include any of the Alpha Dog software because that studio doesn't exist anymore. Whoops.
Yeah, whoops. Yeah, but this is just very interesting because it's tough out there. I feel like Xbox especially, they have become an acquire and shut down group, much like a lot of these other publishers have become. Like, I think the same criticisms that have been levied against Electronic Arts, for example, could now be levied against Xbox, no matter what kind of bold face or they benevolent face, I would say, that they put on a lot of their statements. You know, good old Uncle Phil, Phil Spencer talking about preserving games, but you know, it's
I would maybe separate the Microsoft and EA comparison and say Microsoft and Embracer and Disney, and now walk with me here. So, Microsoft, Embracer, and then the Disney merger of Fox specifically all happen when money is fucking dirt cheap. Interest rates go down, 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 down. Economy doing better and better and better. And U.S. economy, specifically, doing better and better. And in terms of a lot of Embracer and Microsoft, pandemic makes interest even, like, loan forgiveness is possible. And so a lot of those decisions in 2020, 2021, 2022, a lot of M&A decisions are kind of come down to YOLO, cash is cheap. We could either let this sit in the bank and maybe get a small amount of interest, or we can spend this capital. And if we think that if we acquire X, Y, or Z, we think that we'll make more money there. And so it's literally just like an investment strategy, except it's now we own you. Mm-hmm. And so all three of these, Disney learning it very rapidly on the film and streaming side of things, primarily. Embracer learning it in the just general late-stage capitalism, fuck around and find out kind of way. And Microsoft learning, especially in games, you can't just say, I'm going to acquire thousands and thousands of people, and then just hope that it works out like putting money in a high-yield savings account.
Yeah.
That's not actually how acquiring a business works. And you have to have a plan. And if you don't have a plan, the fuck are we doing?
Yeah.
And so Embracer's strategy is now we're three companies. We're Coffee Stain Publishing and Friends, which is for... That's the, we're going to try and sell this. That's everything they want to sell is going into that holding company. Middle Earth Enterprises and Friends, the stuff that they like and want to keep. And then Asmodee Digital and Friends, or Asmodee and Friends, where they literally are doing an accounting trick and shoving all of the corporate debt. Mm-hmm. They are just making a third company that has some actual value, like Catan, and they are attaching this fucking 1,000-pound noose around its neck and saying, take one for the team. And that's how they're going to try and get out of this. Microsoft, where do I even begin? Who the fuck knows?
Yeah. And also I think, you know, whenever a company is acquired, people are going to get laid off. That's just a truism.
They did. They laid off thousands of people a few months ago.
Yeah. So I feel like that, but a lot of times, you know, the thing is you have to kind of look past the corporate spin, because companies will always say, oh, this is going to be great. It's going to really expand what we can do, but there's always going to be layoffs, even if things are going well, because if things are going well, if we laid people off, they could go more well because we'd be spending less money.
Exactly. And what's that? If we close Double Fine, well, they might have a game coming out in the next month, or next year. I don't know why I said month. That's not insight. That's not special insight, genuinely. Within the next year. So that means that if we shut them down now, that's bad. Oh, what's that? Tango Gameworks just finished porting Hi-Fi Rush to PlayStation, and then that means that they're pitching a new project. Well, that's the right time to kill a studio if I've ever seen one, because they're about to try and hire up and take more resources. And it's like, you can't... The thing that is very obvious in all of the online discussion this week about Xbox that just keeps coming home is like, if you go to a bank, if Microsoft went to a bank and said, the Xbox brand is worth this much, the bank would the bank would try and write a valuation based on revenue and the earning potential of franchises. But there's a real trust cachet. Like, there's a real value of trust that they might have accidentally gone too far, accidentally, quote-unquote, really fucked around and found out just how easy it is to burn that bridge.
Mm-hmm. With the bank, you mean? Theoretical bank. Just in general, like the bank analogy was only like, this is how like financially you would measure a company. Like, you would not measure Xbox by saying, like, the Xbox division, the Microsoft gaming division within Microsoft of like, and multiply the financial numbers by like 1.05 because there's a lot of goodwill. People like Xbox. You're not going to get a loan because people like you.
Yes, but you sure as shit can make less money if people don't like you.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, it has a negative impact. It has a severe negative impact. If people hate you, like, I don't know what to tell you. Go look at Tesla's earnings.
Yeah, exactly. It's and you know, and there's a real cognitive dissonance between how they position themselves in the industry, almost as this fatherly sort of company, like, oh yeah, we keep our games around. I think back to when they were talking about Xbox 360, the backwards compatibility stuff, and with that, it's like I feel like they just kind of killed that. You know, that was so funny. They were like, yeah, we're gonna bring out all these Xbox 360 games until they didn't. Right? So it wasn't like something about preservation.
We ran out of the ability, like the rights, and I'm like, there are games that you're selling on the Xbox Live Marketplace for 360 that are not backwards compatibility, so you can't give me this bullshit that they're not cleared for rights.
Yeah. Exactly. They just figured they couldn't make any more money off of it, really, and they were probably sinking money into something they weren't recouping. So, yeah. But with this, the fall of the Hollywood blockbuster and the AAA game, I mean, I just think, two perfect examples that are very recent are the Avengers game, and this week, literally, Suicide Squad. Warner Brothers said that on the Suicide Squad game, they lost, $200 million? On that game?
Technically, if we want to be very, very precise, the failure of the underperformance of the Suicide Squad game led to a $200 million loss. They aren't saying exactly how much. They could have also had like a quiet write-down of something else in there. Like, mostly because I doubt that game's budget was like $300 million.
Yeah.
But, so like, I don't know where all of it accounts for, but like, yeah, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. That's a lot of money, and it's sad. It's like, Microsoft, people say, yeah, but Microsoft has so much money. Yeah, but it doesn't mean they want to spend it,
Yeah, again, here's the actual thing. If you're Satya Nadella, first of all, fuck you. Second of all, if you're Satya Nadella, and now you have 3 distinct gaming divisions, technically 5. You have Xbox, you have Bethesda, you have Activision, you have Blizzard, and you have King. And they are all run relatively autonomously internally. Because someone, Mr. Phil Spencer, in his infinite wisdom, in his infinite I'm not used to being a people manager wisdom, decided that running them all relatively autonomously was the right call. Why the fuck would I not just shut down the Xbox division?
Yeah.
And keep Activision? Activision's the one that's gonna make money in the tens of billions. And you know what's not? The Xbox division.
Yeah, like I was just curious, and I was thinking, like, okay, like, so the pillars of Xbox used to be, like, Halo, Gears of War. There hasn't been a Gears of War game for 4 years. The last time there was a mainline was 5 years ago.
And Halo Infinite has been on again, off again, on again, off again, but generally received negatively. Forza Motorsport, people did not like Forza Motorsport. That landed with a thud. Like, they keep swinging and missing, and they have been saying next year's the year with the games for 11 years straight.
Yeah, I feel like they're the kings of the 8 out of 10 games.
But they used to be.
Yeah.
Now where are the games?
Yeah.
Where are the games, John?
Where are they? I mean, I was looking. I mean, with Gears, especially, like, in the last what was it, since, I don't know, in the last 11 years or so. I mean, they've had, like, what, two mainline Gears games?
Yeah, I mean, oh my god.
I mean, Halo used to come out every 3 years, like clockwork.
Yeah. Yep. It gets way stupider. So, Perfect Dark. They announced announced this Perfect Dark project in 2020. This is a game that they said in 2020 was a quadruple A project. Quad A.
Oh god, so they got there first on that particular bit.
Well, no, because
okay,
the original Dead Space was pitched as a Quad A game.
Oh, really? Good lord.
Yes. Visceral, as far as I know, is the first company to start calling their content Quad A. It's stupid. They set up a studio in 2018 in Santa Monica, a very expensive region. John, do you want to, like...
What, Santa Monica?
Yeah, starting up a new company in Santa Monica.
That makes no sense at all. I mean, Santa Monica's so ridiculously expensive.
The only reason is because they wanted to steal people from Sony Santa Monica.
Yeah.
And so they set up the Santa Monica studio in 2018, and they hire for 2 years, they go into pre-production, then they announce Perfect Dark with a teaser trailer. Then they hire on Crystal Dynamics to come in and co-dev. Reports are, as of this week, they don't know what that game is still. Like, they don't know what kind of shooter it's going to be. If it's going to be like a modern shooter or like a classic shooter or like an open world shooter. It's been in pre-production for 6 years.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny, too, speaking of Halo. Like I said, it used to come out every 3 years.
Yeah.
Up until it got taken over by 343.
Yep.
And then, I mean, Halo Reach came out in, 2010? And I think Halo 4 came out in 2012. Yeah. And then it gets mighty sparse.
Yeah, you get one Halo outside of Master Chief Collection for the entire Xbox One generation, unless you include Infinite technically working on an old Xbox One.
Yeah. I mean, it goes like Halo 5 was 2015, and then Halo Infinite was 2021. So yeah.
What a great franchise.
So since 2012, right? So in a 12-year span, right?
Yes.
You have 2 Halo games in a 12-year span after having 5 of them in a 12-year span.
Yes. So, John, thought experiment.
Mm-hmm.
Think about the cost of hiring an employee for an on-site office in Santa Monica. So, like, their annual salary.
Yep.
Now multiply that by about 60. Let's say you have 60 employees. Let's exclude the Crystal Dynamics side of things. Now take that annual salary plus, like, the cost of business and, like, rent and everything. Multiply that by 6.
Mm-hmm.
About how much money, just like ballpark, are you thinking right now?
Let's see. I do have the calculator up here. I mean, Jesus. That's a lot of that's a lot of numbers. That's I would say that's probably 80 million.
So for 80 million, would you expect to be able to walk around in a video game yet?
I would think so.
Bluntly, I would expect the game to be damn near.
I would expect it to be done. I would expect it to probably be done with about a $20 million marketing budget, $100 million all in. You're done. Out the door.
For a niche-ass IP like Perfect Dark... I'm sorry to the listeners of this podcast. For a niche-ass IP like Perfect Dark...
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, like the latest Indiana Jones movie didn't set the world on fire, so I'm not... I don't think anyone should be offended, you know?
Well, also, it's like Perfect Dark's quote-unquote heyday was the dying days of the N64. I mean, come on.
And they
I love that game,
failed
but
to bring it back on the 360. They tried and failed to bring it back already.
in terms of commercially, it's never had that much cachet, and it was standing in for a different brand that they weren't going to get back, Bond.
Yeah, yes. I feel like there's probably less cachet for Perfect Dark than there would be for, say, Time Splitters.
Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous, and the batshit part is how, let's say, Perfect Dark, again, we're excluding the part where they've hired Crystal Dynamics outsource for like 5 years on this fucking project already. Yeah. Like, in addition to that 80 million-ish, in addition to what main production is going to end up costing. So let's genuinely say, and this is terrifying, but this is their decision, let's genuinely say this game comes out with a $250 to $300 million budget. How many fucking copies do they have to sell to non-Game Pass subscribers to make that work?
Yeah, I was almost going to say, that's not the right question. How many Game Pass subscriptions do you need?
Semicolon. How many seconds does it take for the new Call of Duty to make that money back?
Yeah,
when you put the two of them next to each other, why is Perfect Dark in development from Microsoft's perspective?
Isn't Call of Duty kind of troubled at this point a little bit? Like there are signs that
it's dying, absolutely, but it's dying. It's dying slowly.
Right.
Like it still will earn back $300 million in seconds on launch day. Like, just in pre-orders, it'll probably make that much. And so, this again begs the question, on a P&L sheet for Microsoft Gaming, if you are Matt Booty, who is in charge of all Xbox game development, all Microsoft game development specifically, he runs all of it, and reports directly to Phil. And you're saying, well, over here I want to throw in $300 million, and we're going to get a Call of Duty. And everyone around the board says, great. And then he says, great. Now I also want $300 million for this feel-good throwback N64 IP that we don't know exactly what it's going to be, but you know what? It sure seems like it'll get about a 7 out of 10.
Yeah.
You throw that dude out of the fucking office.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, ultimately it comes down to a lot of this stuff a lot of the sentimentality really doesn't hold sway when it comes down to dollars and cents. Yeah.
Perfect Dark maybe made sense before they bought Call of Duty.
I totally agree.
But then they bought Call of Duty, and suddenly all of these numbers are on a different scale because everything gets compared to Call of Duty. I'm just going to read you a list of games that are announced by Xbox Game Studios. These are non-Bethesda, non-Activision. These are all coming out soon. Senua's Saga Hellblade 2, which, by the way, is out in a week and a half. Ara, History Untold. Avowed. Age of Mythology Retold. Age of Empires Mobile. Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. Towerborn. Clockwork Revolution. Contraband, Everwild, a game that they put out a trailer and then the team behind it said, oh, there's no game yet, though that was just vibes. Fable, Kojima's OD, which is PT, The Outer Worlds 2, Perfect Dark, Project Mara, Project Maverick, South of Midnight, State of Decay 3.
Yeah, where's State of Decay 3?
The studio, the founders of that studio were working on that game, and then they quit, they spun off, they opened up 4 game studios, and shut down 2 of them based on a Kotaku article a few weeks ago.
Yeah, and the sad thing is, the State of Decay games are actually really cool.
Yes, but all of that has happened since State of Decay 3 was announced.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, State of Decay, I mean, if anybody hasn't played them, they're pretty much zombie Grand Theft Auto. They're pretty cool. Fun games. But, they're just buried. They're just buried. The thing is, I will say about Microsoft is that Microsoft has so much money that there is such a margin for error in terms of mismanagement that they operate on a scale unlike almost any other company in the world.
Well,
I mean, they were the first $1 trillion company, were they not? Maybe Apple was, but they were.
It was them or Apple, but the other one caught up like a month later.
Yeah,
I would say they do, except for Activision until Activision's closed. That changes everything, and like I said, I think in the first segment, like now they have the Eye of Sauron on them, right?
Yeah,
Now the board knows that Microsoft Gaming exists because they just authorized $70 billion and a protracted legal battle that got them in court multiple times.
Yeah.
All around the world. Like, everyone at Microsoft knows about this Activision deal now, and everyone's like, all right, this is the thing that's going to turn our business around, right? So how's the Xbox division turning around?
Yeah.
How's the Bethesda division turning around? But the problem is, the Bethesda workers didn't even get fully situated into the Microsoft workflow by the time the Activision deal closed. Because it was only 3 years... The merger was only 3 years in. Microsoft has not shipped a Bethesda game that started development after the acquisition.
Yeah.
They haven't done it.
So this seems to me like this is still shakeout from all of these acquisitions.
It is, and it's awful. And I don't mean to sit here and be like, so this is obviously what happened. Like, no, this is all fucking awful. This is terrible. Like, people's lives are just getting thrown around because money was cheap.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. It's messed up. I mean, when you just see the scale of these layoffs, where it's not just 40 people here, whatever. It's 1,900 people are gone. It's
from
like
the division. Yes.
Yeah, and the thing is, those jobs. The sad thing is that these are highly qualified people, and they will probably leave the industry.
Yes. I've been sorely tempted every day for the last 6 months to leave the industry after getting laid off myself. And I wasn't even laid off from a company that had investors.
Yeah.
So I will say, if you'll humor me, I'm gonna send something to the 3 of you live on this. I want you to react. Should RFN apply to this? This job listing that went live literally today.
Let's see what this is here. Senior Director of Internal Communications Gaming. Wow.
Oh, weird. Does it seem like someone, maybe? The gaming CEO's office, Phil Spencer's office, is seeking a leader to collaborate with the gaming organization in creating, planning, and implementing effective employee engagement messages and communication methods.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Literally posted today.
Yeah.
Phil Spencer is like, can I get someone to talk to the people for me?
The Senior Director of Internal Communications Gaming will act as a trusted advisor to both the CEO and the gaming leadership team, collectively driving storytelling that will shape the future of play. Ultimately, this position will achieve success individually and through others as we pioneer new territory in gaming. That job would suck.
This job starts below what I got at an indie gig. This is in the CEO of Gaming's office, and it starts at $150,000 US.
Yeah, this job
Get
would not
fucked.
be. Yeah, this job would not be fun.
Let's see here. Required bachelor's degree in business marketing, communications, or related field, and 8+ years of related experience or equivalent experience. And I don't know what or equivalent experience means, because if you have 8+ years of experience in this field, who the fuck cares about your bachelor's?
Yeah, really.
If you had a master's, maybe, but like they're gonna care about a bachelor's, really. 3+ years of people management experience, 3+ years of experience leading and or driving internal communication initiatives.
I like how they talk about, talking about employee engagement and then talking about storytelling.
Oh yeah, you're gonna tell all of these stories to
All
people
of
on
these
their last day.
Let me tell you a story about how you are getting laid off. That's a story. Let's talk about that. Here at Xbox, we create worlds and stories. So what we're going to do is we're going to shatter your world while telling our story. Awesome.
Yeah, no, this is...
Has anybody ever made an audio resume for a job application before? I thought that was quite impressive, John. I think you might have a chance.
Yeah, right?
We should just submit this whole episode, see if this blacklists me from the industry. I'm so done caring at this point. It's so funny. I've been guesting on this podcast now for 8 years, 9 years, something like that. And every time I've always felt like, I should be like really careful about what I talk about. And like in the first segment, I'm like, fuck it. Here's what people are talking about the Switch 2. Because I'm like, do I even want to work in this industry anymore?
Well, that's the thing. It's like, I say that all the time. Like, why do people even want to work in the game industry? Because it is so volatile, so unpredictable, so mismanaged overall.
And then when it is stable, you have, culture war shit every day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh boy, yay, now everyone... Oh, you go and look at, before the fucking sign-in controversy, you go and look at every community post about Helldivers, and you're like,
I was just going to say the Helldiver stuff, where...
But I was like, should I play this? And then I go and I look, like, on a good day, and everyone's like, thank God this game isn't woke. Keep the woman out.
Yeah, but even with that,
thank you.
That game went from being beloved to vilified.
Hated to beloved.
Yeah, so, and it's just like that. It's like, this game is absolute garbage. Let's review bomb it to death. 1 star, 1 star. This is crap. All over a PSN login, which, while admittedly stupid, is really not the end of the world either.
I guess the caveat there is that PSN was not available worldwide in some countries.
Yeah, it got pulled from 177 from the Holy See et al.
It's stupid. Yeah. It's stupid. But at the same time, I mean, the meltdown that people had was insane. But I guess that's what it takes for Sony to reverse its course. But yeah, but that's the whole thing. The amount of that was directed at the developers when they're literally in the middle and are just doing what Sony tells them to do, it just sucks.
Except for the community manager that said, yes, please keep harassing Sony, and then got fired over it.
Yeah, but actually he was right, but there you go.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's a pretty toxic industry. Very, very toxic.
So,
as far as this, like a coincidence that this is happening with the gaming industry at the same time that
Hollywood.
I don't know, Zaslav is kind of canceling movies and TV shows left and right at Warner Brothers Discovery. I don't know. Like, was it the same situation where I can't even remember from which side Zaslav came from. Was it Discovery?
He came from Discovery, which acquired Warner.
Right. So
he did that when money was cheap.
Right, okay. And now money is less cheap, and that means we get to cancel probably some middling projects, but also some good movies that inexplicably some distributors want to pay for, like, more money than... apparently, but like
Yes.
more money than than Warner Brothers can make by getting tax
write-off.
credits by canceling it.
Yes.
But still, like they won't go for like, yeah, we don't want what you're offering. It's not enough. We're gonna settle for less, but you're not getting anything. It seems like this weird spiteful gesture that's maybe is inevitable when you have got when your like movie and TV and entertainment company is led by someone who values none of these things or doesn't see it as a craft or art or anything like that, just sees dollar signs and opportunities to, I don't know, like spin something off and try to sell it, and whoever, like, I don't know what the end goal is. Like, I guess the end goal is just to, right, and like own salary go up as well.
Yes.
I guess, yeah.
Bonus go
targets
up.
are hit. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's, I will say also, bringing this back to the Nintendo in Radio Free Nintendo, I guess, Nintendo just had their financial earnings, and obviously the big headline out of everywhere is like, oh my gosh, they acknowledged that there's going to be a next system, which, sure, whatever. Sorry, I'm tired and cynical. But the, Famitsu is reporting one other very interesting thing that got asked, in the Q&A, where investors, as James is fond of saying, they ask the stupidest questions possible every fucking time, and they're like, can I get free shit? Whatever. This time they asked again about like M&As, and it seems like this time, based on this Famitsu excerpt, the official answer Q&A document is not out yet. Seems like they answered a little bit differently than they usually do, where they basically say, like, shut up, we don't care about M&A. They basically said, yeah, game dev is getting longer, more complex, and it's going to get harder in the future, and M&A is one way to deal with that. Nintendo prefers to foster talent internally, but who knows? And I'm like, oh no, Nintendo, don't I know you're always like 5 years behind the rest of the industry in things. Don't suddenly wake up and decide M&As are a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Please, for the first time ever, look around the rest of the industry and see what people are doing.
So I actually don't know what M&As are.
Mergers and acquisitions.
Yeah,
sorry. Right.
Yeah, not murders and executions, as Patrick Bateman will say. Although, the way
Some
some of
of
these have been executed,
Yes.
is the distinction is a bit less than you might imagine.
Yes,
No,
so
but that's the thing about with the irony with Nintendo has always been that where you said, one of the common factors that's fueled some of these different things across various entertainment, industries and just the economy in general was, the easy money era from the financial crisis up through, into the early stages of the pandemic. Nintendo's never needed credit because it has money on hand. Like that's
it can wait for this right decision.
It's never been a case of like, oh well, let's do this because of favourable like credit markets, because it wouldn't have needed to raise the money unless it was for something on a scale that would just be like
just exorbitant.
Really kind of out of their character, shall we say? So
yes.
that's the thing. It would be kind of interesting in a way, to see them kind of enter into this arena now, to some extent. I guess maybe their sort of vast amount of cash and liquid assets on hand gives them a bit more of a competitive advantage in an era of less easy money. But I still don't imagine that's something that they're all of a sudden. I don't see them immediately thinking, oh, well, now, yes, let's really just throw this around because other people find it harder to do that. It's just not, again, it's not been in their business model for so long, there's been ups and downs, but it's generally served them quite well, not overextending themselves. They always had that kind of, a credible kind of war chest to rely on if things ever got there've been those leaner times, but it was always things like, well, there's Pokemon or kind of that saw them through that. But even if they hadn't so much had those, there was still the war chest that they've built up over all this time, because they haven't necessarily been putting their money in acquiring other companies or whatever else. So it would be really strange to see them kind of significantly change that. But on the other hand, there is the reality, and this is one of the things obviously that's very kind of important when you're talking about the state of the industry and where it's going, is just that Nintendo's managed to carve out this little, I mean, it's not exactly a bubble or a silo, was it? But,
Yes.
they've got this sector where expectations for them are somewhat different than they are for everybody else. Like they've done it, however they've done, by various means, wherein we don't necessarily have to have, on a technical level, the kinds of resolutions and frame rates and scales of our games that everyone else is constantly kind of chasing in the so-called AAA games that the question referred to oftentimes, or indeed when people want to get into the outright hyperbole nonsense quadruple A or whatever. But the fact is still, especially with a new system coming up and all that, they're not immune to the fact that your game development is getting increasingly complex, and you do need more people to make these things, perversely, even though we're kind of getting used to so many people getting laid off. But the bottom line is you need more people, you need more time, you need more money. And so, I guess at some point they have to reckon with that in some way. Obviously there's more ways of doing it than just by buying teams outright, but and they, as we've often said many times, they've always seemed so very reluctant to do that. Even something like Next Level Games, who they were very close with, it felt like it was a bit, like that was about as far as they're willing to go a lot of the times, just to buy someone that they worked with almost exclusively at that
to
point.
keep the status quo.
Yeah, just keep things the same, not to change them. Exactly.
Like, I feel like if Nintendo were going to go out and try and make an acquisition, and this is not me saying they should, they shouldn't, they will, they won't, whatever. History has implied that it would be like a situation that might lead to a merger or acquisition, specifically an acquisition, would be if, like, Intelligent Systems was like, kind of like, hey, can you buy us? Because if not, we might be in a financial place where we need to go make games for PlayStation. And Nintendo, because Intelligent Systems is not owned by Nintendo, people think that they are not, and they pretty much make content exclusively for Nintendo, or with Nintendo in the case of Fire Emblem Heroes and Fire Emblem Cypher. Like, Nintendo might spring to be able to keep that relationship intact and healthy, or other companies like HAL that sometimes literally work in Nintendo's office.
No, exactly. That's the thing. You kind of feel like if it was a kind of push come to shove to keep something that's practical, that we've seen them do that, but it feels like it's kind of just not something that they're really going to get into. Of course, the famous thing is Rare itself, right? To go back to Perfect Dark and all that, so the Stampers had decided they wanted to sell, and they'd been working with Nintendo exclusively for quite a number of years at that point, and it had been certainly a useful relationship for keeping the N64 going, and some of the most popular titles were Rare games and stuff, but no, basically, it's just like that. We'll just we'll let Microsoft compensate us for selling off the just under half that they owned at that time, and let it go. Even though they ended up facing another console generation in GameCube where, you know, they needed all the kind of content they could get to try and support a system that was not hugely popular and was not getting, you know, everything that the biggest third parties had to offer at the time. But they still, you know, and of course this is 20 some odd years ago. Things have, you know, a lot of the people from back then, you know, are not around at the very highest level, obviously, because that was when Yamauchi was still running things, and you know, we've been through quite a few presidents of Nintendo since then, actually. But still, yeah, that's where Nintendo's experience is a little bit different from, you know, what you're seeing in the other parts of the industry. And the other factor, which kind of is more of a Japan sort of wide thing, is that we mentioned before, is that it's more difficult to fire people in Japan, you know, isn't it? So that's less. It's not that it isn't the answer oftentimes, but it's a bit less of an easy sort of lever to pull when you're kind of you know, having to make adjustments for any reason to say, oh, we'll just get rid of people. You know, it is just all too easy to do it in America. So that's, you know, they will do it. Because that's all too often one of the most readily available options to shed costs. So yeah, you've got that factor in it. But yeah, you know, the scale thing, I guess, is what's interesting. You know, because it's with films. You know, I feel like there's been various versions of this in different cycles over time. You know, I always talk about in the past. I think I've mentioned the way that, you know, in the early 70s, like the biggest grossing film of the year was The Godfather. And then, you know, Jaws and Star Wars, you know, come along in the later 70s. And then after that, you get like the sort of the blockbuster era, you know. And I think on the one hand, it has a lot to do with those films and, you know, how popular they were and how they kind of captured people's imaginations and got people to keep going back and seeing them. But on the other hand, you had, you know, television, I think, was also a big part in that, you know, but what people kind of went to the cinema for changed as television, you know, progressed and got more kind of widely adopted and, you know, sophisticated in its storytelling. And you've had a similar cycle, I think, come along later on. You know, even though obviously, yes, TV, you know, adoption was already hugely widespread. It wasn't the case of people literally having televisions at this point, but the kind of home media landscape in general in the 21st century, when you get to, you know, DVDs and Blu-rays and widescreen TVs and high definition TVs that are good and all this kind of stuff, like people can, and then streaming, like people can enjoy content at home with it looking good in its proper aspect ratio, and it can be TV content that at this point, you know, has kind of shed its like ultra formula based, like episodic nature into more legitimate long form storytelling and all that. It was a similar process of like, okay, well now what are people going to go to the cinema for? And the answer has generally been, oh, well, now it's 3D, and now it's, you know, like all these interconnected films that share an IP and a universe and everything. You know, so it's just, I feel like in that case, it's an encroachment of, you know, kind of people are able to enjoy scripted stuff in different ways and you know than they used to, and that's kind of even though it's not exactly a kind of rivalrous situation like, you know, a certain show versus like a blockbuster, it just, you know, as Nintendo is always saying, like, we're in competition with everything, right? Like, a bottom line, people get used to consuming stuff that way. It is going to affect what's left at the box office. And so, yeah, you know, there is the industry's answer anyway. I don't know if this is the only answer, because, I mean, let's face it, one of the biggest movies of last year was a biopic about the guy that invented the atomic bomb. But, you know, like, a lot of the industry's answer is, what's a thing that everybody knows, and that's, like, enough of a tentpole that we could actually make some money on it, and that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's just both, you're dealing with, you know, just going back to the original question about what's kind of the parallel between, you know, Hollywood and AAA blockbuster games. I think it's just the fact that these are two mature industries where there are so many players. There's just so much content out there that ultimately these companies become so risk averse that they don't want to take a gamble on anything, especially when they really are working at these really massive scales where they can lose a lot of money by gambling on stuff. They could make a lot of money, but they don't really want to. They're not in the business of gambling. It's talking about, it's going back to when we talked about the, when Sarin was talking about they could put that money in the bank or they could invest it. Well, they don't want to gamble. They don't want to gamble with that money.
Nope.
Even though they have tons of it, and they'll do dumb things like buying Nokia and then writing them off for $7.8 billion. Don't forget that. Don't forget that.
But then they got the theater.
Right. Yeah. It's a mess.
What, John?
Really
are you
is.
not excited for the new Microsoft mobile app store, the next Microsoft mobile initiative?
I mean, that's only going to be on the web for now because that's where you buy your mobile games.
I seriously, I literally have reread it 3 times, and I think the implication is that they want you to stream over the internet Candy Crush.
Yeah. But see, what I find really funny about that is, so I buy any movie that I buy it on my Xbox, right? I tie it to my Microsoft account, right? But what's funny about that is they actually don't have an app that lets you play those movies on your phone, which baffles me.
They sure the fuck don't. It's connected to Movies Anywhere, and that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, but that
You're supposed
doesn't
to go
cover
to
every
another
movie.
service. No, it only covers 5 distributors worth.
Yeah, I mean, it covers a bunch of them, but I'm just like, why do you not just have, why do you have an app to play that movie on the Xbox but not on the phone? What's the difference? But then also sit there and talk about how you want to have Xbox across every device.
Do you actually want to know the real fucking answer?
Yes.
It's because Apple has rules about what apps are allowed to do if they play movies, and one of those things is it needs to integrate into the Apple TV app. And then if it integrates into the Apple TV app, well, you need to be able to purchase through the Apple TV app.
Okay, so this is a Microsoft Apple pissing match.
This is an Apple thinks that they know what's best for their ecosystem, and so they have made a de facto industry standard. Yeah.
Well, then at least give me an Android app to do that, Microsoft.
Yeah, Microsoft doesn't want to do that, though.
Yeah, oh my god. Yeah.
That's not every device, John. That's some devices. Granted, it's most devices in the world. It's most devices in the world, but it's not every device until we can do it. It's the same reason that they're not putting out an actual app store on Android is because iOS users in America wouldn't be able to access it. Only all Android users in the world and European iOS customers would be able to access it.
Right.
Great. Yeah, so I think to answer this question, I think it both is delusional grandeur and late-stage capitalism combined, and here you go.
Oh, it's absolutely, it's just, it's a clusterfuck.
Yeah.
Line gotta go up. Oh, yeah, get ready. What do you think they're gonna do to get the number higher next quarter?
I can't wait.
Every company that just juiced the numbers needs to get their number higher in 3 months.
Yeah.
And then 3 months after that. And then 3 months after that. The number needs to keep going up. We have built a fucking system where it is illegal to not make the numbers go up.
Yeah. If anything, I think this is probably delusions of grandeur colliding with late-stage capitalism. So, and who loses? The employees. And on that note, I think we will wrap up this episode. Sarin, do you have anything you want to plug? Or any statements?
Oh, God.
You want to make?
Sure. Sokobond Express, I'm not unemployed, I'm underemployed. Sokobond Express is out now on Nintendo Switch. I'd really appreciate it if you took a look at that. That game rules. It's by a first-time developer in Venezuela. We published it at Dracneck and Friends. Switch port's great. It's approachable. It's fun. You might learn some science facts about the real world while playing. And
like what? The Earth is flat, or
chemtrails are responsible for the weather.
Jesus Christ.
These are all facts. I did my own research.
wake up, sheeple.
Continue the plug. Cerebral Puzzle Showcase, May 23rd to May 28th, I think, I should know that, on Steam. Over 100 games, big discounts, demos of unreleased games. You don't want to miss it. Also, last thing, if you played a Monsters Expedition or seen the key art, and you've seen that main character with the yellow backpack that runs around, pushes trees over, and you thought, well, that's really cute. One time only, we are doing a crowdfund run for plush manufacturing. I have the plush. I literally threw out my fucking back and had to have a week of bed rest taking product photography for it. It's going on May 21st for 21 days on makeship.com, makeship.com. It'll be $30. It'll ship relatively, like 2 months later. The quality is amazing. The only reason I'm selling it this hard is because if you are interested, this is literally the only chance you'll ever have. This will never go back into manufacturing. And there's not going to be excess stock. So, if you want it, go get it. Selectbot Express on Switch, Cerebral Puzzle Showcase on Steam. Go yell at your local elected official about how late-stage capitalism is ruining everyone's life.
Thank you, Seren. Always a pleasure to have you on the show. Greg.
Yes, well, so this week, I sort of, it's been, I think when this episode goes out on, it should be around about the 12th, roughly, it'll be the 20th anniversary of Nintendo's E3 presentation for 2004, which, is kind of a very well-remembered one, I think, relatively, because of course it came after 2003, which was the Pac-Man versus situation that was kind of famously kind of regarded as a bit of a clunker in its day, shall we say. And so the pressure was on the following year, not just to sort of, kind of improve upon that, but also, of course, you had the fact that Sony was going to be coming in with the PSP and all this, so it was very high stakes. It was the first E3 where Reggie Fils-Aimé played a role in the presentation. We've referenced that before when he retired, and we did the closing music from Conan because that was used in the Twilight Princess teaser that was shown at the end of that. But the other big thing about that E3 was the DS, right? Now, if we do to go back to the very beginning of the show, we're talking about timelines about when you kind of confirm things. The existence of the DS and the code name, I believe, was in January of 2004, and then of course it was shown in much more detail at that E3 in May, and then of course it launched in Japan and North America in November. So that was a relatively snappy turnaround, because of course it was a system that was launched in haste to try and cut Sony off, from being able to eat their lunch, basically, because that was very much a concern after the console business for Nintendo had kind of run into trouble, and the portables were really doing a lot of the heavy lifting at that stage. So Reggie gets up there and he holds up that prototype model that had the big black kind of strip down the middle overlapping the two screens and all that. I mean, it wasn't that different from what they ended up launching, but it was a bit different. And the first thing that Reggie says is, everyone remembers the transformative experience of playing Super Mario 64 for the first time in the dim and distant past of 8 years ago. But then that gets a little bit of a lukewarm reception. It's just like, everyone's like, I guess I remember that. Like, and you got the screen behind him and the, Wario and Wario are flying around Peach's castle or whatever. But that's, they're not so jazzed about that. But then he goes, what about, you'll be playing this new Metroid game, and then we get images of what would become Metroid Prime Hunters on the screen, and everyone loses their shit at that, but there's big cheers at that, especially when he says you'll be able to play it tomorrow or whatever, or however long it was until people could start playing. So yeah, that's where the way it was back then. If you had a Metroid Prime demo, whatever that was, what got people excited in the press room. And so yeah, the music I'm choosing to close out this episode with is actually from the Metroid Prime Hunters First Hunt demo, which this is something I can forget because I didn't actually have a DS at launch, but it was packed in with the system early on.
This was a DS Fat. Right?
The original DS model, we all know, again, because it was quite hastily kind of put together and everything, did not have like the most robust set of kind of launch games in the world. And so apparently it was Reggie, based on what I've read, that was very sort of enthusiastic about the notion of like, okay, this Metroid Prime Hunters game is not going to be ready in time for launch. We need to have a demo of the game that we can pack in at launch to kind of, get people on board with this system. And that in turn pushed back the actual launch of the full Metroid Prime Hunters game into 2006. It was quite a way after the system came out then, because of the diverting resources away from actually completing the proper game and into this demo that would be packed in. But it just seems hilarious to me now in retrospect, don't you think? It's just like, well, we were talking about the Switch trying to run down the DS's hardware record, and at the beginning they were like, well, we better have this demo of the Metroid Prime for deathmatch game, essentially.
Yeah.
To make sure that people will like it.
The DS Fat in and of itself, it looks bizarre. It looks like a prototype.
It was, and like I said, the one that Reggie holds up, in May of 2004 is even a little bit weirder looking, I guess. Again, but this is pretty much how it began, and that First Hunt demo has like specific like songs and things that weren't in the final game. It has its own soundtrack essentially, but it's remixes, right? It's just like, okay, again, not that much time. Take some remix, some stuff from Metroid Prime and kind of change it a bit. So yeah, the one I'm going with apparently the sort of what it's, because there was a few different things in this demo. Like there was more of a single player thing and then a multiplayer thing, because that was mostly what it was supposed to show off, that you could do multiplayer. But it's called Regulator. But it's like essentially a remix of the Talon Overworld theme from Metroid Prime, which is itself incorporating the Brinstar motif from the original Metroid. So it's kind of a few degrees removed from that, which makes it different enough to use, I think. And it's, kind of does definitely feel quite sort of dated to that kind of mid-aught kind of sound, and also the kind of the compressed sound of it, because it's using samples and, they didn't have that much space to work with. But, I think it kind of works if you can remember the Talon Overworld theme and all that. Though it is a bit of an odd remix, I think it still does kind of work. And just, to me, it gives you a really quaint snapshot of this bizarre window in time where they thought that this thing that ends up being a juggernaut would hinge on people being able to shoot each other in the Metroid Prime game.
All right, and that'll bring this episode to a close. Greg, Guillaume, thanks as always. Soren, thanks for being the guest and putting up with us for several hours of your time. It is appreciated. You are always welcome. And with that, we will see you next week, everybody. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.